Good morning, Roto Grinders. What is going on? Welcome to NFL Week 6 and welcome to the opening drive on Roto Grinders. I'm Eric Crane. I'm joined by a couple of my boys. Mike Petta. Hoop, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, not much. Just happy to be here with you two fine gentlemen.
And Big T, my man, how you doing?
What's going on? As well, another NFL Sunday, so can't complain.
Yeah, I feel great. We were talking before the show, and I said I didn't feel good about my research until about 20 minutes ago, and I woke up about 40 minutes ago. So really, I'm pumped right now. I finally feel good about this week. How are you feeling, Hoop?
Feeling a lot better. Feeling a lot better now that you got me in the right direction at the tight end position.
Oh, I'm so sorry when he goes 1 for 4 yards. How you feeling about the slate, Tony?
Oh, I love it. I feel great about it.
Really?
Absolutely.
Somebody feels good. This is one of the harder slates we've had. Like when I look at it, like the first 5 weeks we had some soft pricing. There were some free squares every single week. This week I'm not sure there are any free squares out there.
You should love it as a tournament guy with obvious plays out there. Like there's plays that everyone feels like they have to play, so that makes it a great tournament week.
Who are some of the plays that you think people have to play?
I mean, everyone thinks they have to play Le'Veon Bell, obviously. He's the best play ever. I mean, everybody obviously thinks they need to play him, but I'm to the point where in tournaments, I don't mind fading him because there's so many good running back plays. Like there's 6, 7, 8 guys that are in incredible spots. So, I mean, obviously I don't think he's a bad play, but I'm starting to lean towards a few fades out there.
Are there any kind of big fades for you, Hoop, where people are saying, oh, I have to play this guy. Oh, I have to play this guy. And you're just sitting around like, I'm not so sure.
Not necessarily. I think it's pretty straightforward at the quarterback position. At running back, I think would be the one spot in tournaments. I agree with Tony. I look to differentiate myself because there's literally, like he said, 8 or 7, 8, 9 really solid plays. And Le'Veon Bell is going to be by far the highest owned, I think, out of all those. But, I mean, there's guys in some really, really good spots. And at wide receiver, I think things are going to be pretty spread out as well. I mean, obviously Antonio Brown's the top option. I think he's, by far the top option, point per dollar and everything. But it's hard to fit him in when, with that salary. His salary is up there pretty high. So I think, although he is the top option for me, I think, he's going to be pretty low owned.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the games right now, and let's see if we can find some of these plays that we're talking about. First game, we got the Bengals and the Patriots, a total of 47.5. The Pats are a 7.5 point favorite, and this is a game I think if Drew Brees wasn't on the slate, I think Tom Brady would be really popular in this spot, Tony.
I mean, me and Hoop were talking about this last night. I felt the same way, and the more I think about it, I mean, I still think he's going to be. He's always ends up being like 15 to 20%, doesn't he? I mean, just because he's Tom Brady, he's still got a lot of people just go by team totals. New England has one of the higher team totals. I mean, I don't think he's going to be as high as Brees or Cam, but I do think he's going to be relatively high.
What about you, Hoop? Do you think he's going to be really popular? I mean, am I overthinking this with thinking, he might be 5%? So,
5%.
I don't know. I just think the obvious spot is Brees just on so many levels. So
quarterbacks, it's always just a hard position, I think, to pinpoint ownership percentage. I've always said I think people just get attached to certain quarterbacks and just roll them each week. But, when you go ahead and match him up with some of the other guys in his price range, you look at Cam Newton and Drew Brees, who I think will be pretty popular this week. I think he'll by far be the lowest out of those three, and he certainly has the same upside as those guys. Great matchup. And it's Tom Brady. I mean, he's been phenomenal. So I like him in tournaments, absolutely.
And you look, Tony, you mentioned the team total here. It's 27.5 for the Patriots. And I'm having trouble figuring out exactly where those points are going to come from. We know they're going to be there. Patriots always score, but is it going to be Blunt? Is it going to be White? Edelman, Chris Hogan, either of the tight ends? Where do you think these points are going to come from on New England?
Brady and Brees are like the same to me just because in the same way, like New Orleans, you don't really have a number one guy. I mean, New England used to with Gronk 100%, but he's still a little banged up. You got Bennett there. I mean, like you said, you really can't for sure say where it's going to go. So, I mean, it's almost like you need to stack it up or play or just pick your poison almost. There's no way to say for sure that that's where New England's going to go of all teams. Like, they're famous for doing what you don't think they're going to do. So, I mean, I don't know how you could say for certain, put it that way.
Yeah, and you look at last week, Martellus Bennett had the big game. Hoop, is this finally the week Gronk breaks out? I mean, it's got to happen one of these weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is. It's but yeah, so many damn weapons for Tom Brady. It's impossible to predict where he goes. And we've seen in the past with Belichick, he'll pick out a game and say, we're just going to run the hell out of it too. So I mean, it's really impossible to go ahead and pinpoint where it goes. I mean, you go one of two ways. I mean, if you're building a ton of lineups, mix and match Brady with all his weapons, or pick one spot and just kind of go in. Like you said, maybe it's a Gronk week, and go all in there and hope it hits. If it doesn't, you're not going to have the best week. If it does, you put yourself in a really good spot. So it's super hard to predict, where they're going to score these points. Like you said, they're projected to score, I think, the most points on the slate, but to pinpoint where that production is actually going to come from, pretty darn impossible.
And on the other side, we got the Bengals. I had some interest earlier in the week. I figured they'd be playing from behind. I had some interest in Dalton's and some interest in Green. Some Brandon LaFell is getting some love. And Hoop, I know you like this tight end here, CJ Uzoma.
I was hoping there was some CJ Uzoma love, because I like the guy. I mean, you look at 5 targets back-to-back games, and I think the thing I like most about him, what the Patriots do on defense, what Belichick likes to do, take away the opposing team's best weapon. That's AJ Green. So if that's the case and they succeed, which they typically do, could leave big game possibilities for guys like Uzoma, Brandon LaFell, and maybe a couple of these running backs. So. I like Uzoma. He's really cheap. I don't think there's really a standout play at tight end, so I'm willing to take some sort of a gamble there. And he looks like a guy that's in a pretty good spot.
Tony, where are you going with this Bengals offense? Is it a Geo week for you, or are you on Uzoma?
Yeah, I like Uzoma too. I'm glad you taught us how to say the name too, because I had no idea how to say that name. So now I know who to root on later when I got my donut on the board. I do love him, though. I mean, I don't like tight end that much, so it's nice to get a punt that I feel pretty good about.
I can't believe you guys don't like tight end. I think Greg Olsen is so far and away the best play.
Well, he is the far and away, but he's 8,100.
I'm paying up for him. I'm paying up for Greg Olsen today. I'm just stacking that whole game. All right, let's jump to our next game. We've got the Steelers and the Dolphins, a total of 49. Pittsburgh is 7.5-point favorite. And this is a game where after the last few weeks, Roethlisberger, he's been crushing it. But we all know the home road splits are there. Tony, are you on this Steelers passing attack today?
I mean, I think you're doing it wrong if you're ever just completely fading Pittsburgh, because they're a rare team. Like, they're the opposite of New Orleans and New England, where you can pretty much know high volume guys like Bell and Brown. I think Brown's in an incredible tournament spot this week. Like how I said, everyone thinks they need to play Bell. I think everyone's just fading Brown for the most part. I mean, there's an outside shot on DraftKings. He could be like 10% owned or something, which is just insane for the best receiver in football. So I really like the tournament dynamic of somehow getting up to him, and it's not all that hard if you do some tinkering at the running back.
I mean, that's a big question we've got to answer today. And Hoop, you're a cash game guy. Is there any way in cash games for you to get Antonio Brown in there?
On FanDuel, I think it's more possible than on DraftKings. It's DraftKings pretty darn hard to get all the way up to him. I mean, you're punting quite a few spots, but I mean, the punts and value plays are available. I mean, if he's going to be your spend, but you look at it like Le'Veon Bell, 7.9K on DraftKings, and then Antonio Brown's 10K. So, it's hard to justify paying all the way up to that 10K on that site. Yeah, I mean, Antonio Brown could be super low owned in a really good spot too. So if I'm building a ton of lineup teams or a ton of tournament teams, I am definitely looking to get heavy exposure to Antonio Brown today.
I guess the question, Tony, is can he hit value for 10K? I mean, is it possible? Is he going to go for 40 points, 50 points? I mean, what would Brown have to hit to pay?
This is the question, though, that I'm on a completely different thinking level than other people. I've heard this all week. Like, can he hit value? Can he hit value? Like, I guess I don't look at value the same way as other people. If he gets me 25, like, I'm thrilled. Like, I don't need 40. Everybody's like, you need 3, 4X. Like, your lower priced guys can go off too to make up for that value. Like, if you can lock in 25 and all these value receivers struggle, like, you're going to pick up so much ground on the field. Like, if you told me right now that he was guaranteed to get 25 to 30 fantasy points, you guys don't think that's a great play?
If he gets 25, The thing is,
like I tell you right now, you can have 30 points from AB, but you have to pay the $10K. You wouldn't roster him instantly?
I'd lock it in immediately. Absolutely.
I think 30, I would get a lot of it. I'm not sure at 25 I would. Can you win a tournament if you pay 10K?
Absolutely. Your other guys just have to hit.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it. The value guys, I mean, you're talking these value guys that are 4 or 5, 3.5K. If they get 25, you're sitting pretty. I mean, if they hit their 4 or 5X, that's good. I mean, I don't know. In football, I just look at it totally different in terms of value. I mean, basketball is the one sport where you're looking for certain things. You're looking for 4X, you're looking for 5X because it's so predictable. In football, there's more variance, and I don't think you really have to be hard-nosed on hitting a certain X, whether it be 3X, 4X. I mean, if you get a wide receiver there, I mean, yeah, you pay the 10K. He gets you 25 to 30 fantasy points. You can still win. There's no doubt about it.
All right, now let's talk about another wide receiver for Pittsburgh. Is it an Eli Rogers week for you guys? I mean, Sammy Coates, he's supposed to be out, right? Has that been official yet?
Limited out. I guess that's the one spot we really need more information because it hasn't been fully available. I'm sure while we're on the air here, something will pop up, and I'm sure the chat will notify us. But yeah, that's big news because I mean, if he's out, yes, Eli Rogers, absolutely. If Coates is in a limited fashion, that really muddies the situation, makes it pretty hard to predict. I mean, I think most people just go ahead and lean on Le'Veon Bell a little bit more and Antonio Brown. This is one offense, like you guys alluded to, that it's pretty easy to pinpoint where the production is going to come from. But if he's all the way out, then yeah, I mean, Eli Rogers pops in the conversation a little bit more.
All right, and Tony, let's look at the other side of this game because I don't have any interest in the Miami running game. The only guy I have interest in here is Jarvis Landry. He's 6.8K on DraftKings, and I mean, the floor is up there. We know the targets are going to be there. What do you think of Jarvis Landry?
I mean, I always like Landry, and he's burned me the last few weeks. I mean, last week I was talking him up all week, and it just he just let me down. But I am coming right back with him. I think he's in a great spot. I mean, he's what, 69 and 68 on the two big sites. So his price is just great. I mean, he's going to get a good workload if they're playing from behind. Yeah, I love Landry this week.
Yeah, I mean, who are you playing him in cash? Because he seems just like so safe at that price, and he could fall into the end zone.
Yeah, I like him in cash, and yeah, he's a guy. Disappointed the last couple of weeks, but I think it's a decent bounce back spot. I think the Dolphins make this a competitive game here. They've looked so bad. And, their offenses look terrible. I think they bounce back a little bit here and make this a competitive game. And I think Landry gets back on track with double-digit targets. And it's a good matchup, too, in the slot versus the Steelers. So I like them a lot. The price is right there. And, just a very safe cash game play week in and week out.
Do you think he's a tournament option, Hoop?
I'd say more of a cash game option, but I would not be opposed to playing him in tournaments on full PPR sites like DraftKings. I mean, he's a guy that literally could haul in like 12 receptions, and that's massive on a site like DraftKings.
Yeah,
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me at all, and we expect Miami to be playing from behind. They're playing.
What do you think about Landry in tournaments, Eric?
I think he's fine. I mean, he gets 10 for 100, and I don't think that's out of the realm possibility at all. Plus, he might fall into the end zone. I mean, that's 30 points right there. I mean, it's 6.8K, anybody for 30 points. I mean, I think he's perfectly fine for tournaments. I really do. Do you think so?
I've always thought of him like as a tournament. I think he's fine in tournaments, and I don't know. You were making fun of me the one week, and I'm slowly starting to think he's maybe not a tournament play all of a sudden. I don't know. He gets such volume that I've always looked at him as a tournament guy, but
he just doesn't find it. He just never finds the end zone.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a game where I'm kind of with you. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to run away with this game. I sort of think a lot of people think Pittsburgh runs away with this game, and I don't see that happening. We know the Steelers, they play a lot faster at home. They're a better home team. Now they're going on the road, some subpar conditions. The conditions don't scare me that much with the passing attack, but it's still just like when the conditions are crappy like this, you just don't see that many blowouts. So I don't know. I don't see Pittsburgh running away, and I think
it's going to be closer too. I mean, I really do. Pittsburgh. That's one of the reasons I'm okay with fading Bell in tournaments. I have just a weird feeling that he has another game where he does really good and doesn't score or something. Gets it's still going to get his 20, but I mean, you can get that from other places too. I mean, yeah.
All right, let's check out our next game. This game is not nearly as fun as the last one. The Eagles and the Redskins, a total of 45. Philly, a 2.5-point favorite. Hoop, looking at this game, I mean, on the Eagles side, I mean, maybe you fire up one of the running backs and gamble. Maybe you look at Deshaun Jackson on the Washington side. I really don't like anything from this game, though, Hoop.
Yeah, from a cash game standpoint, this is probably as close as it gets to a full-out ignore fade situation. I mean, you have the offense in the Phillies or in the Phillies in the Eagles. It's just unpredictable. I think the one guy on this offense I would consider would maybe be Zach Ertz. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of tight end, and he was out there for basically all the passing downs last week, and he has a better game than last week. But it's just a hard offense to predict. And then on the other side, the same can be said for the Redskins. Cousins will spread it out with a lot of these guys, and the running back situation is very muddy. So I am off both offenses for sure in cash games, and I'm not certain that there's a ton of upside in tournaments either here.
What about you, Tony? Have you unearthed any gems in this game? Because I haven't been able to.
No, I mean, this is a game. I've tried to like a few guys, but I just can't get there. I mean, it's a fade game for me, and I don't really even have any plays that are on the verge of making the list. I mean, there's just no value I like. Some people are talking about those tight ends. I've seen some people on Roto Grinders even talking about what Conley or whatever is like ranked one or two. I don't even know who that guy is. That's Kansas City.
Chris Conley, right?
Yeah, that's Kansas. Is he playing for Kansas City? Yeah. I didn't even know. I was trying to figure out who that guy was.
You definitely don't know who he is. You don't even know what team he plays
That's
for.
what I mean. I seen him like ranked number 1 on people. It blew me away. But, I don't like anything in this game.
All right. I do have a few shares of Ryan Matthews and Darren Sproles, but, I mean –
I've heard a lot of people talk about Matthews. I mean, people think he's going to all of a sudden get all the work.
I mean, last week they said that Smallwood and Keon Barner were going to get work, and they saw like 5 snaps combined. I mean, it's going to be Matthews and Sproles. Like, those are the two guys, and Washington can't stop the run, but they're splitting carries. I mean, I've got a couple of them, but I'm really just not I'm not in love with either of them, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of them had a decent enough game. I mean, I think the floor or the ceiling is pretty capped, though, right, Hoop?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I just talking about running backs, there's just so many guys in really good spots at basically all price points that hard to settle definitely for one of these guys, but I could see the upside in tournaments.
All right, let's check out our next game. We're talking about ugly games. Let's go to another one. We got the Ravens and the Giants, a total of 44. The Giants, a 3.5-point favorite. Last week, I was all in on Eli Manning, and that did not work out very well. This week, I am definitely not all in on Eli Manning. On the other side, we got the Ravens' new offensive coordinator. We don't really know what to expect. There's no Steve Smith. Tony, is there anything in this game you like?
I mean, every week we talk about a 1 or 2 games where the line moves a little bit, and this game's gone down 2 points in the last hour and a half. It's down to 42.5. So I was already interested in the Giants defense just because Baltimore's line's beat up. Their offense just looks terrible. I mean, you don't know what the new offensive coordinator is really going to do. So I like the Giants D, especially with the line movement. I mean, I'm not in love with it because it's still the Giants D. They don't get much pressure on the quarterback, but I don't love any defenses this week necessarily, so it's an interesting, cheaper option to me.
What about you, Hoop? Is there anything you like in this game?
Don't mind that call. I mean, definitely if I'm going anywhere, it's probably the Giants D. But for the Ravens, I think Pitta is interesting. And Mike Wallace, I think, is interesting, probably more so for tournaments. But really, you look at the workload he's been getting, double-digit targets in the last 2 games. I mean, maybe a cash game play. Pretty cheap. So him, Pitta, Giants defense, can't really get excited about much else. I mean, I guess you could probably throw Beckham in a tournament lineup, but I think there's better plays.
Yeah, Tony, I was going to ask you about Beckham. This seems like a Big T special. Last week he was pretty highly owned. He was pretty popular. This week he comes back. Nobody's going to play him. Boom, big game.
I mean, I've said that the last few weeks, and I keep taking him here and there with exposure. And something's wrong with the Giants. I almost treat this like a baseball slump. Like, until I see them do something, I'm just going to be off. Like, if they beat me 1 week, then so be it. But I'm just not going to play them until they do something. They've looked so terrible. I mean, how bad was that offense last week?
It was unbelievable. You say if they beat me 1 week, they've been beating me every week because I've been playing Odell every week. I mean, like it's kind of like Golden Tate at this point for me. Like I've been paying for all those terrible games. I got to keep paying up for that one good game.
Good spot for him this week. It's a good segue into the next game. There you go.
I love that Huth's on the Golden Tate train with me every week. It really makes me happy that I just don't that like Tony has to look at two people with disgust and disappointment instead of just one.
Are we back on it? Are we talking about that game yet?
Well,
I can't wait to hear you guys back on them again.
Oh, it's gonna happen.
I just haven't talked about them because before the show there was a line in the chat saying first 10 minutes that we talk about them. So I wanted to make sure the over hit.
Oh, the over definitely hit by 21 minutes. That's pretty good for us.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to buy me a Golden Tate jersey with all the money that I've lost.
I can get you a discount. They'll probably be selling them on the streets here in a matter of no time.
Yeah. They'll tell you go outside the stadium, people will be wiping their tears in the Golden Tate jerseys. All right, next game, we got the Bears and the Jags, a total of 46. The Bears a 1.5 favorite. And, Tony, when I look at this game, I am all over Jordan Howard in this spot.
Yeah, he's another I mean, we could talk about running backs for hours this week, but he's another guy. Like, obviously, I think Bell, I can keep saying it over and over, Bell's the best play, but like on a normal week, Howard would be talked about like as clearly one of the top 2 or 3 plays, and this week he's what, like 5th, 6th, depending on who you're looking at. Like he's been great the last few weeks. He's got a great matchup. I mean, there's literally no negatives in his column that I can see. So I think he's a great tournament play, low owned. He's going to be tough to play in cash because of the guys ahead of him, but that's just the way the week's shaping up.
You really think he's going to be low owned? Who?
Depends on the site. I think he'll be popular on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel he might go a little bit lower because of the other elite options right in that price range. So DraftKings popular because and you can play 3 running backs there. Obviously with the flex on FanDuel limited to 2 running backs, and there's a boatload of guys in extremely good spots. So I mean, I think Bell's going to be the highest, and then after that, I think there's probably about 5 or 6 guys that will have similar ownerships, and I think he'll be one of them. I think him, DeMarco Murray, McCoy, Michael, to some extent, will all be pretty similarly owned as RB2s.
So, I mean, when you look at Jordan Howard, one of the nice things there, Tony, is that he is a 3-down back. Like, Kadeem Carey isn't stealing carries from the guy, so we know he's going to be there. One other guy on the Bears offense, Cameron Meredith, 4.1K over on DraftKings. He's obviously involved in the offense now, had a big game last week. Tony, is that price just too good for you to pass up?
Yeah, I mean, in cash games, it's a super hard fade. I mean, he's got to be probably the highest owned of the week, isn't he? Even though he's kind of a lesser name. I mean, he's just got so many targets, so much workload. Jacksonville has been pretty good against the pass, but, I mean, he's just too cheap. Even if he flames a little bit, he's still going to hit the value that everyone likes. I mean, everyone wants to hit their value. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough fade. I love the fade in tournaments, but in cash games, it's just super hard to do it.
Yeah, he's in a good spot today. The price is low hoop, and this game just screams to me one of those 2 catches for 17 yards, and everybody's complaining.
That's the same feeling I got is the problem. Like that's what I'm saying about going up to like AB, and like I just have the worst feeling that all these receivers that people are relying on are just going to flame, and the other roster construction is going to win the tournament today.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be super common for people to save money at wide receiver, pay up for running back, and pay up for quarterback. And that's what so many people are going to do. So if you're looking to be different in tournaments and most of the field, you don't play guys like this. You completely fade them. And in cash games, yeah, he's a price point play that's just too good to pass up. But in tournaments, you look at the offense around them. They have guys that can contribute. I mean, you look at Jordan Howard, like we said, he's getting a massive workload at the running back position. Still have Alshon Jeffrey. I mean, you have to imagine at some point he's going to get going. You have Eddie Royal. So they have other guys on offense. I wouldn't be shocked at the end of the day, like you said, a 3-catch, 20-yard performance. That's certainly in the realm of possibilities. For cash games, his price is just too cheap to pass up with the attention that he's getting in this offense. So, yeah, I think a great cash game play and a great tournament fade.
Yeah, I've got him in some tournament lineups right now, and I'm really leaning toward taking off. I mean, you guys know how this is. Some weeks you just get a bad feeling about a guy, and you can't necessarily explain why. And Meredith is that guy for me this week. You too, Tony?
I mean, yeah, I've put him in my cash games because I have to, but I definitely feel that stinker coming. And when you said it, like, that's my exact feelings. I mean, he still could go off, but I feel like he's going to lay a stinker. I don't know why.
Yep. And on the other side, we got the Jags. We know the Bears, they can be run on. I have no interest in TJ Yeldon. I have no interest in Chris Ivory. The one guy here I'm looking at in tournaments, Allen Robinson, maybe a little Julius Thomas too. Hoop, what do you think of Allen Robinson this week?
I think it'll be alone. Like I said, I think a lot of people will be looking to save money at the wide receiver position. I could definitely get on board with him. I mean, he has massive, multiple touchdown upside with 10 catches, 100+ yards, basically any week. This is a good matchup for him. I think he's a really good tournament play. If I had the money, I'd play him in cash. But the way it looks right now, I probably won't be going that route.
Yeah, he's a little expensive. He's 7.8 on DK. Are you going to play some Allen Robinson today, Tony?
I look at Jacksonville a lot like I look at the Giants right now. They've looked too shaky for me, and I like too many other spots to pay up at receiver for a guy like Robinson. I mean, I know he's a good play, but he's just not the type of play I'm going to invest in today.
One thing I want to mention too, yes or no, Jags pass a lot. We know Blake Bortles can be shaky, especially on the road. It might be raining there. Bears defense, yes or no for either of you guys?
Yes, for me.
Definitely for me. They're one of my favorites. They're top 2 or 3 for me for sure because of the price.
And they're just free everywhere. It's amazing. All right, guys, we have been talking a lot, and we haven't even made it to our marquee game. Let's check it out. Total of 53. Carolina, a 3-point favorite against the Saints in the Superdome. And this is the reason I can't play any other quarterback, because I'm going to have so much Drew Brees in this game, Hoop, that I just can't talk myself into anybody else as much as I want to.
Yeah, I mean, great spot here, obviously, for Drew Brees. Cash game playable, tournament playable. You have to love him in all formats here. Hope is in tournaments, people still think that the Panthers defense is good and they avoid him, which is obviously a big mistake because this Panthers defense is atrocious, really, really bad. I mean, now they're giving it up on the ground. I saw Jacquizz Rodgers basically run all over them, which is just astonishing on Monday night. So, I when it's all said and done, I think this will be the 2 most popular quarterbacks, Cam Newton, Drew Brees. This total, obviously, 53. That's the highest on the slate, and it could just turn into a massive shootout here. So quarterbacks, both these guys, phenomenal spots.
And, Tony, when you look at this game, I mean, it's obviously going to be popular. Brees is going to be the most popular quarterback. Cam's probably the second most popular quarterback. How are you playing this game and still being able to differentiate in tournaments?
I mean, for one, I'm going to play a ton of Cooks, and I don't think Cooks is popular, but I don't know. I mean, I just don't worry about ownership, I guess. I mean, it's harder to win a tournament, which we know with high-owned guys like this, but if it's clearly the best play, like I think it is, then it's just tough to fade it. I mean, I am going to have a decent amount of Cam, too, just because I think he's in a good spot, and he'll be slightly lower owned, but this game is just so far and away shootout material that it's a tough knot for me to go super heavy on it.
You mentioned you're going to have some Cam. I am scared of Cam today. I mean, with the concussion issues that's brewed up, twice now this year. And do you think, Hoop, that they're even going to let him run at the goal line like they usually do? I mean, it seems a little bit like they're going to say, we're in this for the long haul. I'm not sure I want Cam busting his head through the line at the goal line this week.
I still think they do. I mean, they came out and said that. Obviously, that's coach talk. Could be completely opposite, but I'm going with the side that they need to win. They're 1-4. This is a spot where they need to win. They went 15-1 last year in the regular season. They still clearly think they're a good team. I'm not worried about it. And plus, I still think he could obviously have a phenomenal game through the air against this team. I mean, the Saints defense is just so atrocious. So I think there's definitely some outs here for him to have a massive performance. And if he's not running as much, I think he could make up for it through the air as well. So, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, obviously that's the one drawback, to Cam Newton. I mean, if there's not that concern, I think he would be by far the highest owned quarterback this week. That slight concern going to bring him down below a guy like Drew Brees.
And when you look at the pass catchers for Carolina, and we should mention, too, Jonathan Stewart's back as well. I have some interest in him. Let's talk about the pass catchers for Carolina. We got Kelvin Benjamin, Ted Ginn, my boy Philly Brown, and Greg Olsen there. I think this is Greg Olson's spot this week, I think, might be the best spot we see for a tight end all year. But, man, is he expensive. Tony, are you able to pay up for Olson?
I love Olson. Yeah, on any team I can get to him without really sacrificing and playing a complete dud guy. I love Olson. So if there's value guys you like, which there is out there, I mean, Olson's clearly maybe the top play when you factor in how weak I consider tight end. So I do love him.
Yeah, I mean, I like Olson this week. Is he your favorite Carolina pass catcher? Hooper, are you looking at other guys too?
No, yeah, it's him by far. And, just to speak about this game overall, the three guys that are going to be high owned here, Breeze, Newton, and Olson. The rest of these guys are going to be low. I mean, you look at Kelvin Benjamin, you look at Cook, Snead, Fleener, again, like you mentioned, I mean, everyone else is going to be really, really low. And, I mean, from the Saints side of things, you look at their pass catchers, 2 out of 4, 2 out of 5, the guys are going to have massive, massive weeks. There's just not many questions about it. So, I mean, the way to differentiate yourself is get some exposure to the pass catchers other than Greg Olson. And even the running back, I mean, Mark Ingram, he'll be really low compared to those other top running backs this week. And he's been performing quite well lately.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 13 targets in his last 2 weeks. Ingram has. And so he's finally back involved in the passing game. He's 6K over on DraftKings. And he's going to be unowned because, I mean, for a number of reasons. But one, people aren't going to pair Breeze and Ingram and Cooks together. I'm going to have quite a few teams with that pairing because I just think this game is going to be such a massive shootout that I would rather be overweight on all the spots than underweight on any of them. Any other guys for you, Tony, that you're focusing on in this game?
I mean, I think the best pivot on FanDuel from Meredith is Michael Thomas, the same price. I mean, 5,400 for him is way too low in my mind. I think that's right. He's 54 on, right? Yeah, 54 on FanDuel. Same exact price as Meredith. So great pivot in my mind. I like him. I love Benjamin on the other side. Like, he's going to be just – him and Cooks, are just going to be way too low owned for this type of game.
I'm not as much on Benjamin. Just New Orleans just been getting killed through the slot. Not as much on the outsides, but I definitely understand. I was really hoping that Benjamin was going to be more popular than Olson, but it's sounding like it's not going to happen, even at Olson's price. I was hoping there for that sticker shock with that price, Hoop.
Yeah, I still think people are going to try to – I mean, if people are spending at tight end, he's by far the most logical. I mean, if you're getting all the way up there, which, might be a little bit difficult, which should bring his ownership down a little bit. But if you're getting up there, he's the guy people are going to play.
Yeah, I mean, I like him more than CJ Uzoma, but I still like CJ Uzoma. All right, let's talk about this next game. The Rams and the Lions, total of 43.5. The Lions a 3-point favorite. And I think Matt Stafford is going to just get killed this week. I don't think it's going to be a good week at all for him. I like the Rams defense. Hoop, where are you at in this game?
Strikes me as like a nasty game, and I just don't think there's really much to consider outside of Golden Tate.
Golden Tate. Tony, are you on the Golden Tate train?
Oh, every week. I mean, he's the nuts.
Guys, he's kidding. Tony doesn't really love Golden Tate. Don't worry about that.
Golden Tate. So you guys got to be on him again. I mean, don't give up yet.
I'm not. He's 4.4K. I'm not giving up.
There's a strong case to be made this week with Theo Riddick out. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, Theo Riddick's out. I mean, Dwayne Washington also out. I mean, you look at this running game. Do we really trust Justin Forsett to come in behind this line against this defensive line and do anything, Tony?
I mean, I don't know. No, I think it's an interesting spot for sure. I don't like Detroit's offense at all. I mean, they're so – besides Marvin Jones, they're just going to be so one-dimensional, and I hate Detroit today. So I'm actually surprised they're even a 3-point favorite. I like Los Angeles in this spot.
Los Angeles. I still got to get used to that. I just keep calling them the Rams. It's awfully sad for me. I actually have interest in the Rams defense too, Hoop. And you look at the other side of this game, I'm not playing anybody except for Todd Gurley, maybe a sprinkling of Tavon Austin, but for the most part, the Rams are just a stay-away spot.
Yeah, just this game overall just seems so nasty to me. I just wouldn't be surprised if it's just a grinded out like 13-10 game. I don't know. I know the chat's talking about Marvin Jones. I mean, he's a fine option. I don't know. In that price range, I think there's other guys I'd rather play than Marvin Jones, to be honest. But I know a lot of people think he has a good play, but just really not for me.
What about you, Tony? Any interest in old Gurley man this week?
Definitely not Gurley. Yeah, I hate that LA. I mean, maybe I've never played Tavon Austin in my life, but he's what 3,900 on DraftKings. Like maybe the 3,900 he's a play. He gets 1,000,000 targets a week. I mean, he doesn't catch any of them, but he gets 1,000,000 targets at 3,900.
By the way, Tavon Austin is everybody's sneaky play this week. I've had
people like him. Seriously,
I have had so many people message me. Man, I really like Tavon Austin this week. I'm dead serious. I've had like.
I mean, he is cheap.
Everybody. Yeah, he is cheap. I mean, he's no Golden Tate though. That's for sure.
I would definitely take him over Tate, just for the record.
Oh, okay. Well, I sent some some big T-Bucks coming on. Siege Bucks we've already got.
I'm sure you can put the Siege Bucks on the line. I'm sure you got plenty of them.
Yeah, he should. By the way, well, never mind. Let's go to our next game. We got the 49ers and the Bills. Total of 44.5 for the Bills. A big old 8-point favorite. Surprised the Bills are that big of a favorite over anybody, but they have been good. And Hoop, when I look at this game, it is just going to be LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah, phenomenal spots. Good game script. I mean, everything points to him having a really solid game. I don't mind Tyrod Taylor on DraftKings 5.3K. I think if I'm saving money at the position, he's the guy that I'd go to over anyone else. Outside of that, maybe some Charles Clay. I think he's got a nice price on DraftKings at 2.9K. But outside of that, now Bills defense too. Obviously, I think they're probably the top ranked defense if you're spending. So those are the three guys in the defense that I'd be looking to here.
Yeah, I think it's really tough. I mean, there's really no argument to be made against the Bills defense, right, Tony?
No, I mean, they're for sure the top defense as far as just solid plays. I mean, you never know with defense. I always like to swerve a little bit at defense from the chalk, but they're the best spot for me. I mean, Kaepernick has always been terrible. Buffalo in general has been really good the last couple of weeks. I mean, they beat New England, Arizona, and who'd they beat last week? Another decent team. I mean, they've been solid.
All right, let's check. Wait, hold on. I'm going to do a joke real quick. Anybody have interest in anybody from the 49ers?
I mean, I actually don't hate Hyde at 51.
Oh no, Tony,
5,100. Like I think he's got at least 17 touches every game. 5,100. I mean, I didn't say I'm playing him, but I don't mind him at 5,100.
I've heard a few people like Torrey Smith this week too.
Oh, yeah, I definitely don't like him.
I've heard that name thrown around. I'm like, really? That's really a thing this week? All right, next game we got the Browns and the Titans, a 43.5 total. Tennessee, a 7.5-point favorite. And this is another one of those games where we can kind of narrow down the production. It's DeMarco Murray, it's Delaney Walker, and it's, I guess, Terrell Pryor. I mean, and Hoop, is there really anybody else in this game you're looking at?
No, it's like, how much more similar could this be to the previous game? I just look at the Bills and the Titans as like the exact same situation today. At home, facing a shitty team. DeMarco Murray, LaShawn McCoy strike me as very similar plays. Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, I think similar plays. Neither team has a strong passing attack. Delaney Walker is a solid option if you want to spend up, and the Titans defense a good play. So I just think the Bills, Titans, super similar spots in terms of what we can expect today.
What about you, Tony? Is there anything else in this game that we can look at, or is it just those guys?
No, I mean, I think it's just those guys, and I agree completely. Like, it's the same exact spot, like everything about the game. So that's why those are the two pivots off of Bell at the top. I mean, they're clearly the top three plays. So, I mean, I agree. I don't really like anything else.
All right, let's check out our next game. We got the Chiefs and the Raiders. This game a lot of people are talking about, a total of 46. The Chiefs a 1.5 favorite. And all I've seen everybody in the chat all morning, oh, God, the wind is here. Oh, no, everybody's going to get blown off the field. Nobody's going to be able to throw the football. David Carr is going to air it out, and it's going to go backwards. Nothing is going to work in this game, and it's 13-mile-an-hour wind. Let's not get crazy, people. This is a great tournament spot, Hoop. What do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, for that reason alone, I mean, I think, guys like Amari Cooper, Macklin, Crabtree will all go pretty low because this is the one game that got all the hype. I mean, it was looking a lot worse earlier in the week. Thursday lock, it was looking like this win was going to be 25 to 30 miles an hour with, downpour the entire time, which would obviously be a huge downgrade to the offense. Now it's looking 15-mile-an-hour wind with a slight chance of rain at some point throughout the game. So we'll fire these guys back up. And, I think my favorite is going to be Amari Cooper. He's just too cheap around the industry.
Yeah, and Tony, we like some Amari. We like some, I don't know. I like some other guys in this game. Who are you looking at here, Tony?
I don't like anyone in this game. I mean, I'm one of the only people. I think everyone loves this game, but I just don't like it. I mean, Andy Reid off a bye week. Everyone knows whatever he is, 15-2 or whatever the record is, but he's dominant off a bye week. I've been on Oakland every week, but I just don't like the spot this week. I like other games more. The total went from 48 to 46. I mean, I don't love the spot, so I'm fading it.
What about the running backs here? We know DeAndre Washington, Jalen Richard. I mean, I feel like both those guys are in play, not together, obviously, but one or the other. I mean, I could absolutely see one of those guys kind of a flop lag situation where nobody's playing him this week after everybody was on him last week. What do you think, Hoop?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, the problem is we have so many strong plays closer to the top that, it's hard to really settle on these guys. So, I don't really know what the upside's like in tournaments, to be honest. I mean, one of these guys would have to find the end zone a couple times. I just don't know how likely that is, and I don't know who it's going to be. So, I'm fine just, kind of avoiding this running back situation this week. Last week, we needed value at running back. The top plays weren't as plentiful. So, we could settle on taking a shot on these guys. The carries were relatively split last week. They had to talk about the hot hand situation. So I'm fine passing on this situation this week.
All right. And what do we do with Jamal Charles, Tony? 5.1K. We have no idea how involved he's going to be. But, I mean, if we're getting real Jamal Charles, that's an insane value. But I'm not so sure we're getting the real Jamal Charles.
Yeah, I mean, he could easily be like someone that wins someone a tournament when he just goes nuts, but I'm not going to be the guy that it happens to. I just don't see it. I mean, they got other options. They're going to work the pass in. I think the pass is where they're going to get Oakland a little bit today, so I just don't like it. If you knew he was going to get a certain amount of touches, maybe, but then he would be popular. So that's what makes him a decent tournament play, but it's just not for me.
Yeah, and I sort of wanted to like him. I really wanted to like him, but I wanted some indication that he was, actually going to get work. So I'm just gonna pass. And if I lose to Jamal Charles, well, it won't be the first time. All right, our next game, we've got the Falcons and the Seahawks. Seattle is 7-point favorite in total with 45. And we were talking about running backs we like. Hoop, I don't think anybody's going to play Christine Michael today. Is that just wishful thinking on my part?
No, I think he is going to be pretty low owned when you consider some of the other top guys and in a very similar spot. I mean, and on most sites he's cheaper than the other guys too, so I like him a ton. On FanDuel 7.4K, on DraftKings I believe he's 6.8K. It's a good spot here at home. Starting to catch the ball a little bit more as well, so I like him a lot.
All right. And what about you, Tony? Because I think if you look at Christine Michael, like 2 weeks ago against the Jets, had the bye week last week. Nobody's talked about him for 2.5 weeks. Now all of a sudden he gets this great spot against the Falcons. Are you going to be firing up Michael in tournaments?
Yeah, I like Seattle. I mean, I'm actually looking at the passing game a little bit too with Russell Wilson. I mean, I think he's my second favorite quarterback behind Breeze as far as tournaments. I probably wouldn't use him in cash games just because it's a little riskier and it might be windy or some weather out there too. But I like him. I even like a little three-man stack with Baldwin and Graham. I mean, sometimes it's better to not stack both receivers, but I like both spots, and they're both going to be low-owned. So I really like the three-man stack, and I could see Seattle going crazy today.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And if you're doing like a late slate tournament team, like I don't hate the idea. You can even throw Russ, Christine, Michael, Baldwin, and maybe even Jimmy Graham together. Because, I mean, I think Seattle could absolutely go off against Atlanta. Hoop, let's talk about the Atlanta side because not a lot of people are on them. And this is usually if I can get a guy like Julio Jones at 5% ownership, I'm going to do it. I'm not so sure this is one of those weeks.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a tough spot going to Seattle. They've been hot. I just can't really get invested in the spot in Seattle. I think it's a good spot to kind of avoid, and I don't think there's a ton of upside in tournaments either. So definitely off the Falcons today.
Yeah, same for me. Any interest in you in the Falcons, Tony?
Definitely not. I mean, you got a dome team. They just got a win last week in Denver, a tough spot. But Seattle's has the best home field in football in my mind. If the weather gets bad at all, you got a dome team outside versus a team that is the best against the pass for years now. So I don't see how anyone could like anyone from Atlanta outside of maybe Freeman if they get behind for a bunch of dump offs. But I hate Atlanta today.
All right. Our next game, we have got the Cowboys and the Packers. Packers a 4.5-point favorite in a game with a total of 47.5 points. And earlier this week, we didn't know what running back was going to play. We thought Eddie Lacy would be out. Now, obviously, he's going to be playing. I think Eddie Lacy is playing, right?
Yeah, he's playing.
All right. So, Eddie Lacy's going to be in there. I have interest in Randall Cobb, though, and I don't want to, but I do. Hoop, what are you doing with this Green Bay offense?
I mean, I think if I'm going anywhere, it'd probably be Randall Cobb. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up getting 6, 7, maybe even 8 carries this week. And, he's really involved in the offense last week. I think if I'm going anywhere, it's probably going to be Randall Cobb, Eddie Lacy, still obviously a little banged up. For me, it's going to be Randall Cobb.
What about you, Tony? Are you going on Cobb or are you on Lacy at all? I mean, normally this is a passing attack that we love to play, and nobody's going to play him today.
I don't know what it is about Green Bay, but I watched that game last week, and they just haven't looked right all year either. I put them in the same category as the Giants and Jacksonville for me. I just don't feel comfortable with what I've seen. That game was embarrassing last week. You had Rodgers missing open guys. I don't know. I don't like it. If I'm going to pay the premium for those type of players, I know they're going to be low owned because of the spot, which makes them interesting. But I'm just going to play the chalkier guys that I think are better plays.
And you talked about low owned guys that might be interesting. Ezekiel Elliott on the other side. We know the Packers, they've got this great run defense that hasn't actually played anybody yet. What do you make of Ezekiel Elliott, Tony, from a tournament perspective?
I mean, I know I see the Siege talking about him all week long, he's the next coming of Barry Sanders or something back there. But, I mean, they're still number one. They haven't played anybody great against the run, so they're probably not the best run defense in the league, but they're still number one through 5 weeks. They have to be decent even if they haven't played anybody. So, I don't know. I don't love the spot for Zeke. My main issue, I guess, with him is how many great plays at running back there are. This isn't a week to, go crazy at running back because 2 or 3 guys are going to go off at the spot minimum. So if you know that, why go contrarian if you have guaranteed plays that are out there at the same price points?
You feel the same way, Hoop?
Yeah, I'm certainly not playing Ezekiel Elliott. You look at the other guys. There's probably 6 or 7 other guys in just elite spots. Yeah, the Packers defense might be somewhat of an unknown, but they've gotten the job done so far. And yeah, it might not have been against the best competition, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and assume that their run defense is pretty darn good. And like Tony said, you don't have to be super concerned with the ownership. So Le'Veon Bell is going to be the highest owned guy. There's no doubt about that. But those 5 or 6 other guys that we've talked about, they're all going to be, the ownership's going to be spread out amongst those guys. So I can get a low-owned DeMarco Murray, who I think in that next group will probably be the lowest owned out of, the 5 or 6 other guys that we talked about. I'll just take him over Ezekiel Elliott all day.
All right, and guys, before we get to our last game, we've got a gong. I missed the sound effects. Sammy Coates is in today. So, crap, because I have a lot of Eli Rogers. Now I have something to do after the show. But, I don't know. I'm disappointed. Is that going to get you off Eli Rogers?
I'm not certain. It looks like Hoop froze maybe.
Oh, we got frozen Hoop.
I'm not even sure that Coates isn't just going to be like a decoy, though. I mean, the guy's got a broken finger, a cut on his finger. I don't think he's going to play a ton. I don't know. I mean, he's going to be pretty popular from last week. I hope people play him because I have a strong feeling that he might not play too much.
By the way, I mean, as soon as I said that I'm going to have to get Eli Rogers out of teams, I'm just saying that's when Hoop froze because he goes, oh, God, I have to get rid of Eli Rogers now. Let's check out our last game. We got to get out of here in a few seconds. Colts and Texans, of course. The big news here, Will Fuller's out, which is disappointing, obviously, for the Siege. And I'm disappointed because I wanted to fade Will Fuller. But this is a spot we mentioned Lamar Miller in a great spot. And, just another one of those running backs, right, Hoop?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think this is the guy that's going to be way, way low owned compared to those other dudes. And he's getting so many touches. Last week, obviously, against the Vikings, had the bad game. They pretty much pulled the plug on their offense and really scaled him back last week. This is a perfect matchup for him. The workload is definitely going to be there. Targets in the passing game. I like him a ton in tournaments. I think he's the guy that I'd be looking to load up on to differentiate myself from the field.
You feel the same way, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't like him with his workload against an Indy team that always has struggled against the run a little bit. And I mean, you got the late night hammer, which I mean, it used to be Monday night you would look at the hammer, but now you got the Sunday night hammer when all these tournaments end. So, I mean, I like Houston's defense too. So I do like a few things tonight. I mean, I know it's a high total, so you don't usually like the D, but Andrew Luck is just a sack machine, turnover machine, even though he's pretty good quarterback, but. So I like Houston and Lamar Miller, a nice little correlation play at the end of the night.
All right. Well, yeah. Sunday Night Hammer, by the way, it just doesn't sound as good as Monday Night
Why
Hammer.
can't we get our Monday game back? Yeah. I mean, the Mondays were so fun with the tournaments ending.
Yep, I agree. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. We got to get out of here. We got to make way for Dean and STL cards coming up. We got Colosi and Red Thad. After that, we got Joey Ingram on Night Swept. So that's going to do it for us. For Hoop, for Tony, I'm Eric. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Beers Daily Fantasy Six Pack, little place I like to call the Fantasy Bar. And in this edition, we'll take a look at DraftKings. 6 players I'm looking at for you over there on DK. So as always, we'll give you a quarterback, a couple running backs, a couple wide receivers, a tight end. We always end each video with the beast of the week, the guy I'm feeling great about, the guy I think you got to get in a lot of those lineups this week. So let's get into it today. A lot of interesting plays this week on DraftKings. Some value. We'll try to mix that in. Some guys I think are underpriced. So lots to get to. Excited about this week. Let's start at the wide receiver position. A guy I think is in a great spot to bounce back this week. Jarvis Landry, 6,800. So you can really take advantage of recency bias. Jarvis Landry is a guy everybody's been talking about pretty much every week on DraftKings with them 10 targets weekly. Last week we saw not much Jarvis Landry. So a lot of people may jump off ship here, but I expect a great game here from Jarvis Landry for a couple reasons. We expect Pittsburgh to score some points in this one. That's going to force Miami to put the ball in the air. Jarvis Landry, best target Ryan Tannehill is going to have. We know them 10 targets are going to be there. So last week was an anomaly. I expect him to get back to his normal production. And a great matchup here with corner Sean Davis, who mans the slot for Pittsburgh. Really not been very good. We've seen some big games against him week in and week out. So great matchup here for Jarvis Landry. He gives you that nice floor that you look for. Maybe not the upside to win you GPP, but I do think there is enough upside there to roster him in any format. Cash Game's one of the first guys that I'm locking in. Love the floor this week in the matchup for Jarvis Landry. All right, I talked about underpriced guys, so let's go to quarterback, and a guy I think is vastly underpriced this week on DK, Tyrod Taylor, 5,300. So just way too cheap. You know me, I talk about it all the time. You got to buy low, and I think you really do that this week with Tyrod Taylor. A lot in the favor of Buffalo this week. But Taylor specifically, you're going to see a lot of people on LaShawn McCoy, which is one of my favorite plays of the week. You know that if you've watched my other videos. But I think Tyrod could be a nice leverage play off of the running game there in Buffalo. Tyrod himself adds to his ceiling with his running ability. The 49ers not only have to travel across the country, but you get a more up-tempo offense for Buffalo with the 49ers running so many plays. And Tyrod's giving you a nice floor, 15 or more fantasy points in each of the last 4 games. So buying very, very low on him. Not hearing a lot of talk about Tyrod Taylor, but I expect a big performance out of the Buffalo offense this week against a bad San Francisco defense. All right, to the running back position, a guy whose price is juiced up, but still very much in play, and that's Jordan Howard, 6,200. And here's another leverage play. Brian Hoyer's a guy I like a lot. You're going to hear a lot of Cameron Meredith talk this week, and the Bears passing game, maybe not as much talk as we should have on a guy like Jordan Howard. 45 touches in the last 2 weeks alone. A workhorse running back, and you're getting him at a $6,200 price point. Tough to beat that. So people are going to look at it and say he's too expensive. I'm jumping off board. I don't know if he's expensive enough, honestly, for the workload that he's going to get. And Jacksonville, underrated against the pass, but against the run, giving up well over 100 yards on the ground per week. So Jordan Howard very much involved in this offense. I don't think that's going to change here. And at 6,200, tough for me to ignore that price. All right, let's go to the tight end position. Always fun on DraftKings with some of the pricing here. But the guy we're going to roll with this week, Jimmy Graham, 4,900. And Jimmy Graham is back, baby. Very much back. Looks like the New Orleans Jimmy Graham again. You know, very athletic, a guy that can jump over anybody, make plays that most people cannot make. And back-to-back 100-yard games for him here. And I think he continues to play well for this offense. I think they made a big mistake in how they used him last year, and I think they understand that. This guy is a weapon like few others in this league that you really need to utilize. And again, I think that continues here moving forward, especially in the red zone. I mean, who's going to guard Jimmy Graham? Not many guys are going to get that job done. So I expect his touchdown equity to remain very high. I expect his usage to remain very high in this offense. And Seattle as a whole, the offense, Russell Wilson, everybody had an extra week to heal up, to improve. The offense has looked better over the last couple weeks. So in my eyes, Jimmy Graham, one of the better tight end bets this week, just 4,900. Love that price. Love the Seahawks this week against Atlanta. All right, back to the wide receiver position, another guy. I think recency bias is really going to affect here. Will Fuller, 5,900. Will Fuller, a guy I've played pretty much every week. I jumped off last week against Minnesota, did not like the matchup. I love this matchup at home against the Colts. So definitely going back to the well here on Houston. Lamar Miller, a guy I like as well for that team. But as far as Fuller, we know those big plays are what can help you win a tournament. You know, the deep balls are going to be there. They're going to take their shots at Will Fuller. And I have to imagine Vontae Davis is going to spend most of his time working with DeAndre Hopkins. So that leaves a great matchup here with Will Fuller. The upside is there. The ceiling is there. The price is still down on him at 5,900. Will Fuller, one of my favorite DK receivers this week against the Colts. All right, that's 5. Let's get to 6. Let's look at this week's Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. We're going to go back to the running back position. We're going to go to the high end here. We're going to roll with Le'Veon Bell, 7,900, this week's Beast of the Week. And you look at the pricing, you know, Antonio Brown at 10,000. Very hard for me to justify that play when I look and see Le'Veon Bell at 7,900. So easy decision for me on which Pittsburgh guy I want. That $2,100 savings you can put to use elsewhere, obviously. And Le'Veon has looked like the guy we expect him to be. 26 touches per game in his first 2 games back so far. They're very creative in how they get this guy the football, whether it's as a running back, as a receiver. We've seen him man the slot. They're going to get this guy the ball, and the matchup doesn't get any better here against a Miami defense that's really struggled against the run. We saw it last week with DeMarco Murray. We've seen it week in and week out, and Le'Veon Bell just so involved in this offense. Got to take advantage of this price. Running backs on DraftKings, a lot cheaper than the wide receivers. So I'm tending to play more of my running backs this week. It's a week I wish I could play 10 running backs, but Le'Veon Bell at 7,900 definitely stands out as my favorite play on the board over at DraftKings. Get some exposure in all formats. I think he has a monster week this week in this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll do it for Week 6 here for DraftKings. As always, any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to talk about, comment section right below the video. You can reach out and follow me on Twitter at BeerMakersFan. Always taking your questions over there. And if you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up there. A little click, help us out. Get us more involved here on YouTube. But glad to be bringing videos over there as well, and appreciate you guys stopping by the bars. For rotogrinders.com, I am Beer saying salut. Best of luck this week. We'll be right back here with more videos for Week 7. Good luck, guys.
Grinders, Dean here. That will be Dean 78904 if you want to get all technical on me. It's 11:30 in the morning on the East Coast. It's 8:30 in the morning on the West Coast. Of course, I'm just live at the flagship show here on Roto Grinders. Of course, it's sponsored by DraftKings. And joining me today, it's an intimate Grinders Live. No tip and pick. He's away on vacation. Enjoy your vacation there, John Lee. It's myself and one Justin Van Zuten, STL Cards 84. Cards, how's the morning treating you?
Well, pretty crazy. I was sitting here waiting for news on Sammy Coates all morning, and I've missed out on some other things, and now Sammy Coates is going to play, and my lineups are a mess.
Are we sure he's going to play? Are we sure he's not a decoy? I couldn't resist but sent out the GIF, from Scary Movie with the strong hand. His hand's all stitched up, and it's lacerated, and I don't know, man. So we have the Coates injury. Apparently, he's going to be playing today. I have 0 shares. I'm not playing him at all. Do you have any thoughts instantly as far as Coates?
Yeah, I have 0 shares of Coates as well, and I'm not even going to look there. But it is slightly concerning because I was very high in exposure on Eli Rogers. And that's become a little bit more nerve-wracking now because we just, like you mentioned, we don't know the role that Sammy Coates is going to play. He could be fine. He could be limited. He could be a decoy. He could just be available in an emergency. We don't really know. So that makes Eli Rogers a little bit more risky than he would have been if Coates was inactive, obviously.
Miami's own Eli Rogers, narrative street for both Pittsburgh receivers today. Both those guys born and raised in Miami. Antonio Brown, of course, being the other one. And it's funny because I mentioned your pre-show. It's like, well, you can always pivot to Jalen Strong because we got news. We don't know officially just yet because it's a night game. But as far as we can tell, as the reports that we're hearing, is that Fuller is going to be out tonight. Looks like Jalen Strong's going to step in and play that role. So he's definitely a pivot. It can make some things happen for you if you want to do the global swap. Of course, globally swapping to Jalen Strong, that's a little bit concerning to some degree, but definitely worth a look. I feel like he's going to hit value. We'll talk about him soon enough. But give me the other guys as far as injuries, who's in, who's out, who are we monitoring?
Yeah, the Dolphins have said that Arian Foster is going to play today. I would imagine he'll get a decent-sized share of the workload, whether that's a 50-50 split with Ajayi or whatever the case is. Not a great situation to target, but certainly a decrease to Ajayi's value there. Des Bryant wants to play this afternoon, so if you're considering Bryce Butler, if you're considering Cole Beasley, it's a concern for those guys. Most of this news has simply muddied up situations even worse. It's not like we have super clarity on a lot of these things. We do have some clarity in Green Bay. James Starks is out. Eddie Lacy is going to be active. And the Packers they're listing Randall Cobb as their backup second string running back today. So it's pretty clear that Randall Cobb is going to get, maybe 5 to 7 carries. If Lacy gets hurt, Randall Cobb is pretty much the running back. So
does that bump Cobb up for you? I guess it does to some degree, right? Enough to make
it certainly doesn't hurt. Yeah, he's a guy that I've got a decent amount of exposure to. He was a little banged up towards the end of last week's game, but he's not even on the injury report at all. He's fine. He had, I think, 9 catches for 108 yards last week. Dallas has struggled with slot receivers at times this year. So, yeah, I like Randall Cobb a good bit.
Rashad Jennings, looks like he's going to be back. Do we care?
Nope, don't care. Martellus Bennett's going to play. Mike Wallace is going to play. Jonathan Stewart's going to play. That's most of what I've seen this morning. Obviously, you touched on Will Fuller most likely being out. That's all that I've seen in the last 10, 15 minutes.
Are you messing at all with this Detroit backfield? Looks like it's going to be Justin Forsett signed off the streets and Zach Zinner. Any interest there?
No, I don't think so. The way the lineups have come together, it's just not worth messing with. And, we've talked on a few platforms already this week, and I think I've warmed to the idea of this could be a game where they let Matt Stafford sling it around 45 times at home. And so I've got a good bit of exposure to the passing game there in Detroit.
Yeah, we were on last night with Dink, and he was talking about it just might be a Golden Tate week. I don't know. We'll get your thoughts when we get the receivers as far as Golden Tate. Of course, we jump and we start off with the quarterbacks. You got to start with Cam Newton and Breeze, of course. That was the over-runner of that game, 53-ish, give or take. Biggest number on the board without even a conversation. It's a $200 difference. Breeze, 7.9. Cam is 8.1 here on DraftKings. Thoughts as far as separating one amongst the other or just kind of grabbing shares of both?
Yeah, I do have shares of both. I think Breeze is the safer play in cash games this week, simply because Newton's been a little bit unpredictable this year. He's coming off a concussion. He's turning the ball over more. That's not to say he doesn't have upside. Obviously, he does. But we know what Breeze has done historically at home. That Carolina secondary is a mess. And so I think Breeze is your safe play, but I've grabbed shares of both of them in GPPs for sure this afternoon.
And I'm sure you've heard people the theory that maybe like they're going to, not like Cam run as much, or maybe wouldn't call his number necessarily on the goal line, something like that, less likely to score a touchdown. But what did I just see here on Bovada? I pulled Bovada up. I'm always curious to see over-unders and things like that. The over-under on Cam rushing yards, what would you guess it would be?
There's a prop just for his rushing yards?
Yeah, which I thought was kind of interesting.
26 and a half.
I think it was like, now like I'm scrolling and I can't find it. I want to say it was like 32 or 33. So they don't seem to be too concerned.
Yeah, that's for sure. If that's the number, Vegas obviously isn't too concerned about it.
Yeah, and are you concerned with it? Because I'm not terribly. I'm still going to grab shares. I think Instinct's going to take over. Maybe he'll audible to himself. Who knows? But I mean, Stewart is probably going to be back as well. They're expecting him. So maybe they hand him the ball on the 3-yard line. But it's not going to chase me off him, basically, is my point. The matchup is too good. Yeah,
and once, like you said, once he's out there, instincts take over, and if he sees a lane to run the football, he's going to run the football. Look, this isn't a time for the Panthers to be playing it safe, right? Yeah. They're 1-4. They need every win they can get, and it's a great matchup against the Saints, because if you haven't seen the Saints play defense, it's basically like 11 on 10 for the offense for the most of the game. So
it's a power play.
It is. It's a power play, yes. Coors Field of football, I've heard a few people say. So,
should we touch on the wind and the weather and just in general? Of course, Kevin Roth, much of you saw he updated his articles there. Just checking Roto Grinders, you go ahead and find that. But it looks like Buffalo, there's some sustained winds, about 15, 20 miles per hour or so. Miami, some potential rain, up to 20 miles per hour as far as winds. Oakland, some potential wind, some potential rain. Seattle, because, typical Sunday, potential. I think there's some potential rain and wind as well. How concerned are you? Is there one game that kind of jumps off to be most concerning? Or are you not concerned at all, or what?
Yeah, the West Coast games concern me a little bit. I'm a little bit gun-shy on Russell Wilson with the weather there and the fact that he's been a little bit banged up this year. And, if it rains during the game, I have less Russell Wilson than I probably would have had otherwise. And it's really interesting because comparatively speaking on DraftKings, Russell Wilson and Jimmy Graham are both really cheap. So that'll be an interesting, debate that I think a lot of people are probably having because of the weather. So it worries me some. I'm not as concerned about Derek Carr and Alex Smith in that game in Oakland. It doesn't seem too bad there. And obviously
in that game, the Raiders, their team total has dipped a couple points.
Yeah, it has. And that's
is that just because it was not properly ranked to start off with, or what do you think that is? Or just
I don't know. It probably was the weather for it to come down like 3 points or whatever it did. Maybe a little combination of both, but I don't have too much exposure to that game, mainly because I was building all these lineups when I thought it was going to be horrendous.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's anything where if you roster a passing game, you're going to be totally, disappointed in the results. It's not that bad, but it's enough to at least consider maybe in a tiebreak scenario.
Is Tom Brady still angry? Is he angry enough to play and pivot off of Breeze and Newton?
Yeah, I think so. You saw what he did last week. It's not the most favorable matchup on the planet, but yeah, if he's going to be less owned than some of these other guys, obviously people will like Newton, they'll like Breeze, they like Roethlisberger. But certainly Brady's in play. He's threw for 400 yards last week.
You mentioned Big Ben, like Hoosier style, right? The dimensions are the same on the road, correct? Like, why can't the dude play football on the road? I don't know. He's playing against Miami. That's another team that's pretty dreadful as far as from a defensive perspective.
Steve's coming out.
There it is. Yeah, we should have like a little dreadful counter, throughout the show, and maybe take shots, or I don't know. It's early. Maybe I don't know. Do something along with the show every time that is dropped. But Big Ben 7-5 at Miami. Any interest?
Yeah, I think especially if you're trying to do a little bit of a contrarian lineup where you fit in Antonio Brown, I mean, that will make your lineup contrarian with both of those guys because it's going to force you to go cheap at running back. And as we'll get to, there's a lot of running backs, high-end running backs that are in great spots today. So I think just based on that nature, the fact that it's contrarian, a lot of people are going to be on Le'Veon Bell. I like Roethlisberger a good bit, and I probably wouldn't play him in cash, especially with a little bit of a concern there with the wind. But, if you're at guys in that range, I like him better than Aaron Rodgers. I like him better than Andrew Luck. He's probably on par with Russell Wilson. There we go. That was a tough one to say. If you're looking at guys kind of in that high 6K, low 7K range.
Let's work our way down even more at who else jumps out for you. We think the Detroit backfield is kind of a mess. Is it possible Stafford just chucks it like 40, 45 times today?
It absolutely is. He's actually probably my highest owned quarterback on DraftKings today. Ooh. On GPP lineups because he's cheap, 6,200. They have no running game to speak of. It's been confirmed only 2 running backs active. Washington's not active, so it's down to Zenner and Justin Forsett, who they just signed off the street 5 days ago. And
I love when we always assume they come off the street. Like, he has a home.
He does have a home.
He's got a cell phone. I'm sure he's got a car. But for some reason, we always make him off the street. But go ahead, continue.
So I think you do see a pass-heavy approach from Detroit today. They're at home, and they could control the time of possession in that game. Obviously, the Rams sometimes have trouble moving the football. So I like Stafford a good bit at that price tag. He's $2K cheaper than the highest guys. And, I mean, you put him – with Blake Bortles and Mariota and Wentz and Eli Manning, I mean, I like him better than all those guys.
Do you just keep riding the, Brian Hoyer, 5'8"? They haven't really bumped them up. Jacksonville is kind of like one of the, funnel defense, but it's not the funnel we always talk about. They're actually good against the pass, according to the DVOA, and they're rough against the run. Any interest in Hoyer at 5'8" today versus Jacksonville?
Less than I had earlier in the week. I mean, with the Mukamara back and their slot corner is back, I don't know if he's going to be getting a full complement of snaps today, but they're getting healthier in the secondary too, and Jalen Ramsey's pretty good. So I was high on Brian Hoyer on Wednesday and Thursday, maybe even into Friday. I've pivoted a lot of that exposure to Stafford, who's only $400 more expensive on DraftKings. I certainly don't fault you if you go there. I mean, he's thrown for 300 yards in all of his starts. He hasn't thrown an interception. So, yeah, it's fine, but I'm less high on him than I was earlier in the week.
How do we feel about T-Mobile, Ty God? Tyrod Taylor's 5'3" versus San Francisco. San Francisco's just not a very good defense. I'm not going to use the D word again. I want to, spurse it out throughout the show. But who's Taylor going to throw the ball to? Like, you can't. I guess you can play him naked. You can play him with a guy like McCoy and just presumably get all the touchdowns there for Buffalo. 5'3" is a really appealing price. Of course, the issue there is Taylor's probably not going to throw for 300 yards. You're not going to get that DK bonus. The 3 points are nice, but he can run for 40 yards. Sure, that's possible as well. How do we feel about Tyrod?
Yeah, you compare him with Robert Woods. Do you feel good about that?
Well, look, DVOA says San Francisco's number 32. They're the worst in the league against number 1 receivers, and Robert Woods is the number 1 receiver by default. Unless, Clay is, of course, a tight end. But, it's funny. Earlier in the week, I was considering Woods, but, thankfully, other guys kind of opened up and kind of, became a little bit more interesting. But if I play Taylor, it's going to be naked, or maybe with Clay, just because Clay is 2.9 and just so cheap. He's interesting. Because he's just so cheap.
Sure.
I don't know what his ceiling is. Not high.
Yeah, it's probably not great. But he's fine just because of the price tag. I've got maybe 2 lineups with him, and I'm not super excited about it. But it wouldn't surprise me if he had, a 260-yard day with a couple of touchdowns.
And if he runs one in, maybe it's a leverage play against McCoy for whatever reason. But, McCoy, McCoy's just basically – he wants Taylor to step out, at the half-yard line. He wants that touchdown. I don't care if nobody's in his way at all.
Except last week, he didn't want the touchdown.
He was tired. He just ran 50 yards. He's like, all right, Gillisley, I'm saving it up for next week. I got all the revenge.
Yeah, but don't these guys want the touchdowns to pad the numbers?
I think so. But,
can't you just suck it up for another play and plunge it in? Or
you would think so. I don't know. He tapped his – maybe it's instinct. I'm not really sure what happened there. But, again, I think he saved all his energy up because he wants to get all his revenge on Chip. We'll talk about LaShawn in a minute, but he's just a lock and load as far as cash game. Spoiler alert. Soon enough when we talk about running backs. Alex Smith at 5'7". I've heard rumblings. I just never play Alex Smith. We talked about there's some wind issues there, and he's also a guy that just he needs wind down his back to actually get the ball.
Maybe he can get it 20 yards down the field if he gets it his back.
He's been fine, though. He's been fine. Like, if we're just looking at box scores, he's been okay, and price hasn't really adjusted. I just don't really play him. I have this weird bias. And we know Andy Reid, against the coming off a bye, is a just mastermind genius. I don't know. Alex Smith, any thoughts, any interest?
No, not really. I mean, the weather kind of took me off that totally. If I wanted a crazy flyer on the Chiefs today, I'd probably take a chance on DK with Jamal Charles. I don't love that as much as I did earlier in the week either, but it's, worth a look if you think he's going to get the snaps.
I don't think he is. I mean, I don't know. I get it. I understand we see the talent. He's 5.1K. We'll talk about. Let's just pivot on and talk about running backs. Okay, so as far as quarterbacks, let's clean that up. Is there a guy that you feel like you might have you're relying almost too much on? Is it Stafford?
Well, Stafford, yeah, he's the only guy. I mean, I've got him on 27% of my DK team, so that's definitely more than I had yesterday.
Is there somebody you took a stand on and said, you know what, I'm just not going to play that guy?
Who don't I have any of? I probably don't have Brady just because I've gone to Breeze and Cam Newton. I'm definitely underweight on Russell Wilson, though.
I guess I'll ask you about Cap, too. He's 5K. Any interest there? I mean, we know he can run. We know that Gabbard's ran the ball 22 times, the read option in the last 2 weeks. Any interest there or just no?
How nuts is Twitter going to go, by the way, if at some point during the game Kaepernick has to take a knee?
Oh, no. But that means they won, though, right? Presumably.
True. Or at the end of the half.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. Yeah. And all the bad puns and jokes. You're right. It's going to happen. Probably in the end of the half. I don't think they're going to win this game. But.
Yeah. At the end of the half, maybe he's got to take a knee. That means absolutely nothing for fantasy. I don't even know why I brought it up. But look, he's 5K. He's got some upside with the rushing yards. That's kind of why you would look at him. I'm not playing him. I like the Bills' defense, but there's obviously a case you can make for it. We haven't seen him. We haven't seen him enough lately to really know, outside of when he kind of fell off a cliff there a couple years back. We don't really know what to expect from him.
So running backs, if you're just now tuning in for the first time all week and saying, oh, I wonder who's playing what. Well, you got Le'Veon Bell in Miami. You got DeMarco Murray at home versus Cleveland. You have LaShawn McCoy at home versus San Francisco. There's so many good matchups that, you can only play 3 guys. I think we talked about it on previous shows. The flex spot kind of feels like a spot for running back this week on DK this week, yes?
It does for me, yeah. I've got a running back in the flex probably on a good 3/4 of my teams this week. There's so many options from the high-end guys to even some mid-range guys that you would normally consider good plays any other week. And, it's definitely a week for the running back.
Can you disperse like Bell from Murray from McCoy? I think you got to play Bell in cash. Like only $200 more for Bell. Bell's going to be playing some receiver as well, of course. I mean, we saw him get, 10, 11 targets last week. They're kind of thin there. Pittsburgh's receivers, of course, looks like Coach is going to dress, but who knows how much he's going to play. We know Bell's going to split out to some degree. He's going to get his carries as well at 20. Like if I were to set the total number of touches for Bell today, the over-under at, 26.5. Is that a reasonable number?
Yeah, it's a pretty good number. I was going to say about 25. So I guess I'll take the under if you make me pick a side, but he's clear cut.
Yeah.
He's clear cut the number one guy for me.
Murray versus McCoy?
To me, they're pretty equal. And on a lot of the major sites, McCoy is a decent amount cheaper. It's like $800 on DraftKings. So for that reason, I'll give McCoy a slight edge, but I do like them both.
Ezekiel Elliott's in the middle of those two. Green Bay DVOA says they're really, really good against the run. They haven't really faced anybody just yet. Of course, Dallas, their O-line is a beast. And, Elliott's been just awesome this year. Nobody's going to play him. Are you going to play him?
What's his ownership? 5%? 5.2%.
5.2%. It's like right where I would have guessed. Like I don't know if I would have put the hook as far as the 2, but right around that's a solid number.
So if you don't think Green Bay's rush defense is legit, because as you've brought up throughout the week, who have they faced?
The thing is, I'm not really taking a stand. I just don't know. Like I can't say definitively, but continue.
So I guess the reasonable conclusion would be they're probably good, but they're not as good as their numbers right now would make them out to be.
Sure.
But now
there's a lot of leeway. There's a lot of room there in the middle.
Right. And now they get to face a team that has a great offensive line and a running back that's, going to get 25 carries and has been wearing down defenses, towards the second half of games. So if you are looking for a low-owned guy in GPPs, by all means, Ezekiel Elliott makes a lot of sense if you don't trust those Green Bay rush defense numbers. I'll be playing the other guys because I think they're a little bit safer this week. But if you're, there's so many slates in DFS these days. Le'Veon Bell is an early game. McCoy's an early game. DeMarco Murray's an early game. So if you're on to the later slates, the afternoon and evening games, you're left with a thinner group of running backs. Like it's Zeke Elliott and Kristen Michael and, Lamar Miller at the top. So in those slates,
which are all perfectly fine.
Sure. But in those slates, maybe I'll take a few chances on Zeke Elliott. I don't know. I'm interested to see how that game plays out. I think maybe Dak Prescott gets a little more work today. Dallas tries to get him, out of the pocket a little bit more and on the move. And I think that's a good way to beat this Green Bay defense. Maybe test him a little bit. So, and I think, Green Bay wins this game. So if Dallas is throwing late, I won't have a ton of Zeke Elliott today, but I am interested to see how that matchup plays out.
If Dez plays, does that hurt or help Elliott?
I don't think it necessarily hurts. I mean, it could help to the extent that does help stretch the field because Cole Beasley's not a deep guy. Bryce Butler and Terrence Williams aren't guys that, really scare you. So it certainly doesn't hurt.
Here's the thing. Like, Elliott can very well have a big game. Like, he could very well put up, 120 and 2 touchdowns. And you still didn't necessarily win anything because Bell can do the same thing, Murray can do the same thing, McCoy can do the same thing, Michael can do the same thing, Miller,
right.
Howard.
It's not like you're getting a huge discount on Elliott for the matchup.
Yes. So, it doesn't mean, you're right. If you need a lot of things to go correct for you. You need other guys to bust. And it's a lot of times it's I'm going to play this guy because everybody's playing that guy. Well, there's 6 or 7 different that guys. So you have a lot of different bullets to dodge. A lot of guys in the tank. Look, I'm probably not going to play Elliott, but I think he's a perfectly fine play. That's just my word.
So who's your favorite that guy?
You mean the guys that besides Bell, besides McCoy, besides Murray?
Yes.
Is it Chris? It's either Kristen Michael or Juwan Howard. Jordan Howard. It's not Juwan Howard. Do not play him. He's old.
I think it's really close between those two guys. I've found myself with more of Howard, but he's also $600 cheaper. I mean, if you think the weather in Seattle is going to be a concern, that's a bump to Michael. But yeah, those would be my 2 picks as well.
Yeah, and then Gurley's in the middle, and I'm not going to play Gurley, and it's same sort of deal. The matchup is not. What do you think of the Detroit defense? Because I'm not impressed.
Yeah, it's not great, but Benny Cunningham is back. So,
you gotta play Benny Cunningham on third down.
No, don't play Benny Cunningham, but Jeff Fisher will have his usual infatuation with Benny Cunningham and play him on all the passing down snaps, and that's tough for Todd Gurley. So, hey, if the Rams stay close and if he gets some goal line work, if they get down there, he could very well pay off, but it's too risky with all these other guys.
Jeff Fisher, the champion of mediocrity. Lamar Miller with, Fuller presumed to be out. Miller's a guy who gets a huge workload, as is. Maybe he'll get a couple extra carries. Maybe he'll get an extra catch as well. I think that Houston-Indy game has got, some sneaky shootout potential there, and it's kind of being ignored to some degree. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, Indy's kind of the wild card team for me there. Houston has the number 1 ranked pass defense in terms of average yardage. I think they're allowing 170-something passing yards per game, and we all know the struggles that Indianapolis has had on the offensive line. So, to me, if the game, it wouldn't surprise me if the game was a shootout. It also wouldn't surprise me if Indianapolis struggled offensively, and with the way their offensive line has been, plus if they fall behind, I think Houston's defense could rack up some points in that one. So I really don't have much exposure to Indy, maybe a frighteningly low amount of exposure to the Colts this week.
I have a share of Hilton here and there, but that's it.
Yeah. Obviously, no, I don't have any Frank Gore.
You trashed him in your article this week, by the way, in the grind down.
What's that?
You trashed him in the grind down this week.
I've probably trashed him every week. 70 yards, maybe a touchdown. That's about it. He doesn't get the passing down work. There's intriguing guys there. Like Carlos Hyde seems a little underpriced at 5.1. Jamal Charles, if you think he's going to get the snaps. Terrence West should get more work this week with the coordinator change in Baltimore. You've got Gio Bernard if the Bengals fall behind. James White gets a little more work with Tom Brady back. So there's guys you can look to down here, but they're just so much less comforting to click than those high-end guys.
So we know like the optimal, or just basically we know what a lot of people are doing. They're going to be loading up on some expensive running backs, finding some cheap receivers. We know that, right? And GBP strategy tells us, well, let's do the opposite. And like you said, you just threw out a bunch of running backs that are fairly cheap, and any of them you actually feel like playing. Like you can click it, I suppose, but who's the one you feel like, most okay about amongst the names you just threw out there?
It's probably Terrence West, actually.
Ooh.
I mean, he looked good last week. 11 carries, 95 yards. That's 8.6 yards a carry. He caught a couple passes. It didn't do much with them, but Kenneth Dixon had 3 carries last week for a -1 yard, so he's not there yet. And basically the fact that they went away from Terrence West and Joe Flacco threw the ball 50 times is why the Ravens made a coordinator change. So logically, that means they're going to get Terrence West more involved this week. He had 21 carries for 113 yards the week before. The only negative is that the Giants have been pretty good in terms of rush defense, but they did allow over 100 yards rushing to Eddie Lacy and James Starks last week. So West is probably the guy I'm most comfortable with. And speaking of that, Eddie Lacy at 5,800, I don't feel like enough people are talking about either. Remember, he's the only running back the Packers have, so
yeah,
he's going to get the ball. It's not like he's a very sexy name either. I could probably trash him in the same vein that I did Frank Gore.
No fat shaming.
But Gore's got competition from Josh Ferguson and Robert Turbin if he's active. Lacy doesn't have any competition outside of Randall Cobb, who they're not going to want to line up at running back too much. And Lacy did look good last week while he was in there, had 11 carries for 81 yards. So I don't mind that at 5,800.
We ignored Rodgers, and Lacy's questionable. Is it possible if he gets dinged, Rodgers just is like throwing the ball like 60 times?
It could happen, but he's just been so bad for the fact that his price point remains elevated. He hasn't thrown for more than, what's his high? 259 last week is his high game of the year. I can't see going there. One of the other quarterbacks in that range is going to have just as good and probably a better game. So, yeah, I don't have any Rodgers this week.
It's the same approach with Ezekiel. Like, it's like he might hit, but it doesn't matter because somebody in that area is going to do just the same.
Right. I agree.
You mentioned Bernard. You talked about the Giants having a good rush defense. You know who he doesn't is Washington. But is Ryan Matthews, is he going to be on the field enough to get enough usage there for you? 4.9. Is he going to make the most of his opportunities today?
They'll tell you that he's going to be on the field. We're going to use him, and then they'll use Darren Sproles. I remember the Monday night game against the Bears. They said that Ryan Matthews was going to be their bell cow. I think they even used that word. I think they used the word bell cow. And the first series, they went no huddle and used Darren Sproles the whole drive. And Ryan Matthews got either 1 or 2 carries in the first half of a game that was close. So he really
bell cow implies you're getting the ball 25 times, right?
Yeah, at least more than 2 in the first half. It's so frustrating the way they say they're going to use him and then they don't. So I'm just off of that situation. You can't trust what they say, and he doesn't really pay off unless he scores a touchdown or 2, which you just never know.
Foster is drawing the start today for Miami. Any interest there at 4.7 versus Pittsburgh?
No, there's too much risk of him leaving with the re-aggregate, because if it came down so close to the wire that he was even going to be active, had to test it out in pregame warmups, like that implies to me that he's not 100%.
Yeah, he never seems to be. That's unfortunate. He had a lot of promise in his career, but just so many injuries. You mentioned White. White could be interesting, get a lot of catches there against Cincy. Of course, stands out on a PPR site, 4.1K on the other side. You talk about Gio Bernard at 4.6. We suspect the game flow is going to have Cincy playing a little bit of chase. When they're chasing, Bernard's out there, so maybe Bernard can catch 6 or 7 passes. And, are they going to key on A.J. Green? Is that kind of the idea? And then Bernard might be open maybe. I want to get your thoughts. We haven't talked about this. Well, I guess I'll ask you now since we're on Cincinnati. Any interest in Uzoma? Is that like a really nutty name out there? Tight end?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's crazy. Everyone's probably going to be concentrated on a few tight ends this week. But I don't hate Uzoma. There's maybe 3 names there in terms of the super cheap tight ends that could be a little bit viable this week. Uzoma would be one. Lance Kendricks. Yeah. I'm going to throw Lance Kendricks' name out there against Detroit. They've been so bad against tight ends.
Oh, boy.
Again, not excited to click that button. And with Jared Cook still out, I think Richard Rodgers has a better game for the Packers this week.
Not again with Richard Rodgers. No more.
There's sub 3K on DraftKings. I'm just look, it makes more sense to maybe pivot to Dwayne Allen at 3,100. Probably makes a little more sense. Zach Ertz at 4K is probably one of the highest owned tight ends for me this week. So we've suddenly just pivoted to tight end. But
yeah, since we're here, there's 2 more names I want to ask you about. Well, okay, so 2.5K is Vernon Davis and Niles Paul with Jordan Reed out. Look, I don't care if they were like 1-3. I can't play those guys, right?
No, I've upgraded my Washington exposure to their wide receivers today. I think that's where you get the most benefit.
Jackson or Crowder or both?
I love Jackson. I just think you've got the narrative street play. Nobody's going to be on him. And last week was the super windy game against the Ravens. And you pick a super windy game, that really doesn't hurt anyone more than it hurts Deshaun Jackson with the deep ball. And he had a poor game against Cleveland the week before that. He's not had a great year. Nobody's going to be on him. Love Deshaun Jackson and GPPs this week. And I've got a decent amount of Crowder as well.
Since we're here, I'm going to ask you, I don't want to click this button, but with Steve Smith out, I think he's fairly safe. Talk me out of Dennis Pitta.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Mike Wallace.
Oh, no, I'm not playing that guy. You can say whatever you want about Mike Wallace. I'm not playing him. It's not happening.
Yep, Pitta actually lost some snaps to Crockett Gilmore last week, which is a little bit of a concern. The wild card there is just with the change in Baltimore. We don't know how they're going to use these guys. I don't hate Dennis Pitta, but I find myself going to Zach Ertz. I like Fleener a little bit this week. Obviously, I'm paying up for Olsen. Jimmy Graham's really cheap on DraftKings, so I don't have much Pitta.
Is the dude back this week, the tight end for New Orleans? What's it, Hill? Is he back? Do we know?
Actually, have not seen that.
I'm curious if he might take a snap or 2 away from Fleener. I know he's been questionable. I haven't seen any official news on that. But, yeah, my bad. I'm a terrible host. For some reason, I just segue right into tight ends. But I want to talk about receivers. Antonio Brown is 10K. We keep talking about it. We're going to spend all our funds. At least the logic, or whatever you want to say, it dictates that we spend all our money on running back, kind of save money at receiver. Antonio Brown, best receiver in all of football. Awesome matchup here in Miami. Narrative Street as well. Born and raised there in Miami as well. And he's going to be 10% owned. Is that a fair number? Is that a fair gauge as far as GPPs?
Are you talking about Rodgers?
Oh, no. Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown?
They're both from Miami.
Yes, they're both from Miami. So, oh, boy. It seems strange that he would only be 10%. Is it the fact that he clicked up to 10K? Is that why? Because here are his DK prices the last 4 weeks. 99, 96, 97, 98. It's not like he's seen a boost here. And he's been 20, 25% owned. Is it just because of the lineup build?
It's the nature of the slate. It's just the nature of the slate. There's just so many good running backs. And that's kind of the way I look. I mean, I get it. Like the subconsciously, you see the extra digit. It's like all of a sudden you're scared.
Holy cow. Yeah.
Like, what if Jamal Charles was 4.9? People would be going nuts.
Oh, I see.
I guess I can fade him at that 5.1. So Brown, he's worth playing because, he's the best receiver in all of football, and he's facing the Dolphins, who kind of stink, and some would call them dreadful. It's just, how do you make him work? How do you fit him in there? And, again, it's for GPP only. I can't play him in a cash game as much as I love Antonio. I think I played him in every cash game pretty much the entire season, but not this week for me, again, because of the lineup build. How about yourself? How are you handling Antonio?
Yeah, I don't have much of him on DraftKings because Le'Veon Bell is $2,100 cheaper than Antonio Brown. To me, it makes no sense that they're that far apart. On FanDuel, I think they're only $400 apart. I think it makes more sense to play Antonio Brown over there. But on DraftKings, it doesn't really take you there with the way that you construct lineups. So I do have a few GPP teams with him. I think that 10% number is maybe a little bit light. I think he might be closer to 15. Just because he's so good and people, will continue to play him. But I don't think it'll be any higher than that. Maybe.
So to continue on the same theory, by the way, as far as these high-priced receivers are going to be low-owned, I'll just work my way down, and I'll say all these guys will be under 10%. Put on the list: Julio Jones, less than 10%. Odell Beckham, less than 10%. A.J. Green, less than 10%. Agreed?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you have a favorite amongst those three? Any interest in any of those three?
I'll take Hopkins. I know he's cheaper than all those guys.
Yeah, is that because and we're not afraid of Vontae Davis? They basically kind of said that Davis is not going to shadow. Who knows if that's true or if that's not, or do we even care?
I care a little bit. I mean, Davis is a really good corner, but it's similar to the situation with the Jets. Like, they have no choice now but to force feed Brandon Marshall the ball. And for all the talk about potential value with Jalen Strong there in Houston, they've got to get Hopkins going. And Indianapolis is certainly an easier matchup than the Vikings and the Patriots. Houston's at home. I just think it's the week that he gets going. And that cheaper price point at $7.5K, we saw him soak up the targets last year when Fuller wasn't around. Obviously, different quarterback this year, but he's a good bit cheaper than all these other guys. I really have no interest in Julio Jones against Seattle. Beckham against Baltimore is fine. I mean, they've continued to say they're going to get the ball in his hands. He would probably be my pick if you made me pick one of those guys there in that high 8K range that you mentioned. But I've got a good bit of Hopkins, and really in that range. And I think the other guys are the guys in that Carolina-New Orleans game if you're for a shootout there.
Yeah. Is that the Sunday Night Hammer, by the way? Sunday Night Hammer is Hopkins. We talked about it before the show. Sunday Night Hammer is Hopkins. Sunday Night Chisel is Strong, right?
Yeah, the Chisel. I mean, you can just chip away there at the lead.
The Shawshank Redemption play, if you will. Spoiler alert. I'm not sure if you've seen Shawshank or not, but there is a chisel involved. Sorry about that. It's been like 25 years, guys. Sorry. If you haven't seen it by now, where have you been? You like Calvin there in New Orleans? That's a good matchup, yes?
Yeah, I don't mind it. New Orleans has been weaker against the slot, which Philly Brown plays most of the slot snaps for Carolina. So if you want a super cheap, sneaky guy, maybe give him a look. But Calvin should be fine with Newton back and the fact that New Orleans is just bad overall defensively. He's a little bit pricey for my liking, but I've got him with Newton on a lot of teams. I
say that as well, by the way. He dropped the Philly officially, so if somebody's not aware, he was called Philly at Ohio State. He's now just Corey Brown. And you prefer Corey Brown? If you're throwing a dart, I assume you're talking about for tournaments. You can't possibly play him in cash.
Sure.
Brown or Ginn?
Oh, definitely Brown. Ted Ginn had negative points last week because he fumbled a punt.
That is amazing.
He had one catch. Well, not – yeah. Are fumbles -1 or -2 on DK?
You know what? I don't know. I want to say it's -1, but I'm not certain. I know it's -2 on FanDuel, I believe.
Yeah, and he had – so on FanDuel, he had one catch for 5 yards, so that was 1 point, a half a point for the catch and a half a point for the 5 yards, and the lost fumble, which was -2. So he had -1. On DraftKings, he'd have 1.5 before the fumble. So if the fumble's only -1, then he had a positive half a point. But
he had a 0.5. There you go. Represent.
0.5. All right. So
that's his floor.
He's in the black on DK. I didn't play the primetime slate over there where I rostered him on like 2 FanDuel teams and had him on 2 of them. So
let me throw some names your way and you tell me kind of how you feel about him on a scale of 1 to 10. A-Rob.
6.5, mainly for GPPs.
T.Y.?
6. I like Robinson a little better.
Brandon Cooks. Do you have too many shares of Cooks?
No, I like him mainly if you're playing him with Breeze, just because there's a hefty shootout potential in that game. But I don't love Cooks as a standalone play just because they spread the ball around so much.
Amari Cooper, are we at all afraid of that weather out there? I know you said before that you kind of were making lineups yesterday and you kind of shied away from it. Like maybe other people did the same thing and therefore like he's going to be low owned. I feel like if you're going to have Cooper, you're more apt to play him on FanDuel where he's a little bit too cheap.
Yeah, on DraftKings, I pretty much global swapped what I had of Cooper to Hopkins.
I have no shares of this guy on Thursday, but I'm loading up today. Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He is. I probably like him a little bit better than Hopkins. He is on about 25% of my DK team. So, yeah, give him about an 8 there.
Jarvis Landry.
Definitely on DK with the full PPR. Miami should be throwing in that game. If you look at Miami's numbers from last week, they only ran 41 offensive snaps. That is an absurdly low number.
Yeah.
So you can't really make much headway. If you look at their numbers from last week, they were all bad just because they didn't have the ball. So I wouldn't play him too much on FanDuel. I like him a lot on DK, about a 7 there if you give me a number.
Doug Baldwin?
Put him at like a 4. I'm just worried about the weather there. It's not great. And he might see Trufant quite a bit. Give me Jimmy Graham at 4,900 if I take anybody from Seattle.
Yeah, Graham is still – we're back. We just keep on talking about the tight ends. We'll talk about them soon enough. We're going to clean that up, of course, in a second. But some more receivers, definitely some cheap receivers we have to talk about. Let's kind of work our way down still. Willie Snead is 6'4". Any interest in Snead?
That seems a little overpriced, doesn't it? Just a little?
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to have much Snead. Oh, well, a lot of the guys in that game are overpriced, aren't they? Like they got the price.
As the nature of the game possibly being a shootout, I guess.
Randall Cobb, 6K, might get some carries.
Yeah, a lot. Give me a 9 on him.
Ooh, can you raise that with Deshaun Jackson at 5'8"?
Oh man, Deshaun Jackson is probably the wide receiver I have the most exposure to today. So yeah, but that's GPP only. Like Cobb, yeah. I feel much more comfortable with in cash games.
I want to ask you your rankings on like every Baltimore receiver, just to get how you truly feel about it.
Fine,
is there anybody that's going to jump out for you with Smith not playing? Aiken, Wallace. That's why we mentioned Pitta. If you had the roster one Baltimore pass catcher, it would be
Rashad Perryman.
Oh, you see that represent.
In tournaments, I like him a lot. I actually pushed some of my Eli Rogers shares to Perryman. Flacco looked for him for a game-winning touchdown last week. He caught it, but it got reversed on replay. And he's been in around 40% of the offensive snaps or so. He should see the biggest boost in snap count with Steve Smith out, and I don't think a lot of people are going to play him. I think Aiken is the safest play in cash games. I don't really have Mike Wallace. He's been a little bit banged up. But
he's also terrible.
He's also terrible. But Perriman and GPPs, don't be afraid to click that button today.
Wow, if that's your bold call for the day, if that comes true, because I'm not clicking it. I'm listening to you. I hear you. I respect you. I can't see myself doing that. I just can't. But we'll see. Maybe it'll work out.
There's so many other guys,
Yeah.
There's so many we've buried the lead. We haven't talked about the popular guys yet. So
we're working our way down. We're going to get there in a second. Before we get there, Golden Tate and Jamison Crowder are both 4-4. Do you have one preference over the other?
I prefer Tate simply because I've got a lot of Stafford, and I think that the volume is going to be there. But on a non-full PPR side, I probably lean towards Crowder.
All right, talk about Cam Meredith. You can talk about him in cash and also the prospect of fading him in tournaments.
I mean, he's going to be mega popular, but the outside corners for the Jags are really good, and I think Chicago gives themselves the best chance to win today if they give the ball to Jordan Howard 20 times. So because his ownership is going to be so high in tournaments, there's tons of other guys that we've kind of mentioned and kind of not mentioned. You just mentioned Crowder and Tate. There's Michael Thomas in that high-scoring game that I think is viable. Robert Woods, I think, is decent enough at 4,200 if you want to go.
You weren't just being a smart ass. You were serious about asking about Robert Woods before.
Sure, it's San Francisco. Who else is going to catch the ball there? I don't hate it. I mean, I don't think he's got massive upside, but nobody would have thought that Meredith had that kind of upside before last week too. So he's probably not my favorite, but I don't mind him. I mean, if you're searching for more upside, Tavon Austin, I think at 3,900 is a decent play this week.
I wasn't we do the first show the entire week. So you hear so many shows as the week progresses, and you get influenced to some degree. You're just going to hear different ideas and people throw names out there. I was the first person. I'm not proud of myself. I might be pointing to the scoreboard later or not pointing to the scoreboard saying, hey, my bad. I was the first person to mention Tavon Austin this week. I was not really proud of it. I was kind of nervous to say it, but
now you're feeling a little more liberated.
I feel justified. It's wow, other people are on board too, and I'm not sure if this is going to be a fun ride or not. But we know
it's going to be a little bumpy, maybe.
Yeah, we know the A-Dot's not impressive. He's going to catch 7 screen passes or so. He just gets a fair amount of targets. the matchup's positive there against Detroit. Detroit's defense not very good. There's always the chance to get run one back, which is, that only happens like maybe twice a year or so, but you never know. And did I mention he's 3.9? I don't know. And that was kind of before some other value opened up, and we talked about Strong is 3K, and Strong might end up, but he might end up in some of my lineups. I don't know. I want to do some more research because that just kind of broke before the show. Any other guys down here? Any other cheapies that are worth a look that we've considered? Is there one that kind of stands out amongst the rest? Michael Thomas, you mentioned at 4.3. I mean, I've heard it suggested that he's going to be like super, super low owned, like 5%. I don't see that, but I think 12%, 15% or something like that. He's a pivot off Meredith, and I'm with you. Look, I'm probably not going to be playing Meredith in tournaments outside of my cash games, and I always throw my cash games in tournaments just because, in theory, they're built to to be optimal. But as far as like building actual GPP only lineups, I'm not going to put Meredith in there. I just don't think that makes sense.
I've heard some buzz throughout the week on Brandon LaFell. Do you have a take there?
Oh man, revenge, right? And he scored 2 cheapy touchdowns last week.
3,200. I'm
not terribly interested. I don't think he's particularly good, but sure. I mean, I guess the idea is they're going to be playing some catch up. They're going to be focusing on AJ Green's probably going to get some coverage shifted over to him. The one thing Belichick does is he locks down. He's like Popovich. Is that like true? We think so, but I feel like if somebody did a study on that, that might be not as true as we actually think. But
it's one of those things that gets ingrained in your head over the years.
Yeah. If you hear it so many times, just assume it's true. Anybody else that's what you mentioned, Corey Philly Brown. I've heard the name. This is a name I've heard thrown out there, and Luke Giant Ball Oil likes him as well. We talked about him on Friday. Tyler Lockett. I guess he's healthy now against Atlanta at 3.6. It just seems like a real discount. And of course, if you look at his game log, it's not impressive. But according to Carroll, Coach Carroll saying he's back, he's ready, he's good to go. I know you said there's some weather concerns. And there's another double dip option potentially. Any interest in Lockett for you?
Well, at least it's not the Eagles, I guess. We don't have to worry about the coach speak being from the Eagles, in which case I wouldn't believe it at all. When it comes from Pete Carroll, maybe I believe it 10% of the time. I don't know. And that's maybe some bias on my part. I can't stand Pete Carroll. Maybe it's the gum. It might be the gum thing.
Yeah, is it? It's when he was the coach of the Jets? No, you're probably too young for that. What is it about Carroll that does that?
I don't know. He just seems pompous, or I don't know. I can't think of the best word to describe him. I don't know.
I don't think of him as pompous. I don't know. He's like West Coast laid back chill. I think he still surfs.
Yeah, but he chomps on his gum like he's got some. He's got a beef with it or something. Like it did something wrong. I don't know. I'm curious as to what.
I'm just saying the Venn diagram of people that are pompous and people that surf does not exist. That's what I'm saying.
Overlap.
I don't think so. I don't think a surfer is. I'm pretty sure he's a surfer, but whatever. People don't want to hear if he's a surfer or not.
I just don't believe him. I don't believe him that Tyler Lockett's going to be this huge piece of the game plan today.
Well, Scott4 just chimed in the chat. I'm not sure if you're aware of him. He's won millions of dollars playing DFS.
He has.
He likes Lockett this week. So how about that? Take that and your Pete Carroll hate.
Fine. I'm fine with it. I almost threw his name out there when we were going through the guys, so I don't hate it. I've diversified to some other guys, but I understand the logic behind it.
One of those other guys is Bryce Butler.
If Dez doesn't play, I think he's fine, but I don't have much of him either.
Elite tight ends. We talked about some of the cheapies already. Let's talk about the elite ones. The matchup doesn't really get much better there for Greg Olsen against New Orleans. Look, you go back to last season, he crushed them both times. And look, the only issue here is just salary. Can we make it happen?
It's so high. Has there always been this much of a difference in price between like the number one tight end outside of Gronkowski? Let's take Gronkowski's like in the past couple years out of the picture. Between these other top tight ends, like at $7K for Olsen versus $3,400 for an Ertz and $4,900 for a Graham. I guess Ertz. What's Ertz on DK? He's $4K this week. I don't know. That's $3,000 difference. That seems a lot. And on FanDuel, Olsen's over $8K.
So I hate to look at the game log because that's just kind of lazy. But just looking at the game log, he's $7K, right? He put up 30 DK points last time. That's 4X. 21 the time before. That's 3X. 12. 26 for San Francisco. Like, the dude's putting up 3 and 4X pretty much every single time, and now he's facing New Orleans. Like, maybe he's worth that price.
Sure. I've got a lot of exposure to him. I mean, it's a great matchup. They don't have much for reliable receiving options outside of Benjamin. So, I've got a lot of Greg Olsen. It just, with all the other high-priced options out there, it feels like it restricts your lineup a little bit. So
I'm trying my best to get to him at least some exposure in cash, just because I feel like he's such a lock and load. Again, the only issue there is the price, making things happen. You want to pay up for top running backs as well. What about Walker as a step down, as a pivot against Cleveland? That matchup looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's great, and obviously they target him quite a bit. 5 for 66 and a touchdown last week. He seems healthy again, and a great matchup. So, especially if you're not on DeMarco Murray for whatever reason, I mean, Walker's basically the number 2 option in that offense. So they're going to move the ball against Cleveland. They've got a pretty high team total by Tennessee standards. They looked pretty good last week. So especially if you're not on Murray, I think you got to have some exposure to Walker.
You mentioned the name Zach Ertz a couple times. Last week we were all over Ertz. He was the chalk. The matchup was pristine. Coming back for the first game of the season for him. 4K at Washington. Sell me on Ertz, because I'm not enthused. I think he'll be fine, but I'm not enthused.
Yeah, it's an ownership move for me in GPPs for sure, just because I think everybody was on him last week. Everybody was disappointed. As a whole, I was pretty low on the Eagles last week. I just thought it set up as a kind of a letdown game for them. I mean, they had the big win against the Steelers, and Detroit had been playing terribly. And, I thought you were going to see Detroit have one of their weird performances where they just show up against a decent team. And, that's kind of what ended up happening. If you look at the numbers, Zach Ertz was in on 85% of the snaps last week. So the playing time is there. He is their pass catching tight end. Selleck is used more often to block. So I don't know. I think this is the week Ertz finds the end zone, and I've probably got more. Let's see. If I'm on my DK lineups right now, I've got 21% Ertz, 18% Olsen, and 18% Graham. Those are probably my 3 highest owned. And so that's about 60% coverage.
Any percent Charles Clay at 2.9?
Yeah, I've got him on a couple. Maybe I'll add him into some more. I didn't put him on a lot of teams just because I was uncertain of his status. The other 40% is pretty much comprised of Fleener and Delaney Walker. So those are the 5 that I've kind of rotated in for the most part.
I'm concerned that you're not rostering any Pitta at all. And I don't want to play Pitta. There's no Pitta, right? Is that what I heard?
Yeah,
no
I have 0 Pitta right now.
Yeah, maybe because of the price difference. Again, you got to kind of play the site. On DK, Pitta's 4.3, and you can find a guy like Ertz at 4K or work your way down to Fleener at 3.5. And on FanDuel, they're all kind of the same price. So maybe if you do play Pitta, you play him on FanDuel and you avoid him on DK.
It just doesn't fit on DK for him. I mean, he's only $600 cheaper than Graham, and $700 cheaper than Kelsey, and $1,200 cheaper than Walker. So it's just not enough of a discount to me. And Crockett Gilmore got a lot of targets last week. I guess that's what worries me the most. When I look back through the snap counts in that game, that Gilmore got a good bit of playing time and looked pretty good. So it's not necessarily the huge volume for Pitta that was kind of the reason we were playing him or looking at him before.
The other site play, you mentioned Graham. Graham's 4.9 on DK. I think he's 6.9 on FanDuel. It's basically the price he was in New Orleans in like 2014 or so. They're asking for in FanDuel. No, thank you. I'm not paying that. But 4.9 on DK seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I don't have him really that much on FanDuel at all. I agree with you there.
All right, let's talk about some defenses. And I don't think that anybody really stands out necessarily. If it's going to be one, it's the Bills. I think Kaepernick is kind of sort of interesting to some degree. I'm going to have a share or two just because of the upside of his wheels. But most likely outcome here is that Buffalo just locks him down, and West Coast team going to the East Coast playing at 1 o'clock. And by the way, that team is terrible. And there's an unnamed source in the locker room that said Christian Ponder is the best quarterback and he should be playing. And that's the number one sign that there's a problem. When Christian Ponder is the answer, I don't know what the question is, but it's not leading anything good. Is Buffalo? Is that our favorite defense? We're going to pick one.
Yeah, if I had to pick one, I think Buffalo is my favorite. I don't mind Seattle as a sneaky play with the weather there, just because they're such a good unit, but everyone's going to avoid them because of Atlanta, being so good offensively so far this year. So my favorite is the Bills, but I think it's a week where you could go super cheap at defense and not be wrong. The problem is you got to pick the right one.
This is another thing we talked about last night, just kind of the variance of price on FanDuel for defense is much different than the variance of price on DK. We're talking about the Bills being 3-7, and then we're talking about a team like, well, we can't play the Saints. If they're free, you really can't play them, I don't think. Maybe, I suppose. But, the Bears are 2-3 against the turnover-prone Blake Bortles. We're getting a discount of 1-4. I don't think it's completely nuts because, again, we know the variance, just, the outcomes. How do you predict outcomes of defenses? You want to pick the teams that are best positioned for turnovers and things like that, but you never really know. You're kind of relying on one or two big plays. Who are we stepping down on? You talked about some cheapies. What do you like?
I've got a decent amount of exposure to the Bears. I don't feel great about it. I've got a little bit of the Giants on FanDuel where they're super cheap, not as much on DK. We laid out the case for the Texans earlier in the show because of Indianapolis's poor offensive line, and the fact that Andrew Luck's been sacked 11 times the last 2 weeks. So I've got a decent amount of the Texans simply because of the turnovers. And Dink brought up a great point on our show last night on the Mailbag show that people get focused so much on points allowed for defenses.
Yeah.
Unless you're pitching a shutout, it's really not that important because if a team allows 14 points versus 30 points, that's only a 2 fantasy point difference. So it's more about who's going to create turnovers and who's going to score that defensive touchdown. And the nature of the Colts offensive line and the fact that the Colts maybe are playing from behind in that game, I think gives Houston a little bit of upside. Obviously, they're not the same unit without J.J. Watt, but they still rank very highly in pass defense. And I think they could get you a defensive touchdown today. If you're looking to play a little bit safer, I don't mind the Titans either.
I'm going to get your top stacks in just a second, and maybe we'll have a minute or two to knock out some questions before we get out of here. We leave at the bottom of the hour at 12:30, and, of course, we're relieved by Colosi and the Rad One, Rad Thad. They take you guys all the way up to 1 o'clock on the East Coast. And, all right, let's dive in. Let's talk about some stacks. Who are your favorite stacks today?
I have, let's see, Roethlisberger and Brown, obviously, if you're able to spend that type of salary. I have a lot of Matthew Stafford and Marvin Jones, a lot more than I would have expected earlier in the week. I really love that combo. Or Golden Tate if you want to get a little bit more frisky, especially on DraftKings with the savings. Let's see. Breeze and Cooks, I've got a decent amount of exposure to. I don't hate the contrarian GPP. Obviously, this is not cash games, but GPP, Deshaun Jackson, Kirk Cousins played today against the Eagles. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of had a good game out of nowhere. Nobody's talking about them. They had that massive wind game against Baltimore last week, and everyone's going to be low on the Redskins.
All right, couple minutes for some chat questions. Load them up. Again, whenever we don't get to Colosi and Ratha, they're going to knock out when they join the show in about 2 minutes or so. Alshon Jeffrey for cash, I cannot sign up for that. No, I can't do it. How about yourself?
Yeah, not for me. Fox has come out and said he doesn't need more targets, so they're not going to force him the ball.
Howard or C-Mike in cash? That's kind of a tricky question. They're both really, really good.
Yeah, no real preference for me. I have more Howard, but don't hate it.
Strong or Thomas?
I think Thomas is safer.
Okay, doesn't Steve Smith being out, does that make Pitt a little bit more interesting? You keep saying that it's Crockett Gilmore. That's the concern, that maybe Crockett's going to take one of his catches here or there. Let's see. Jarvis Landry, is he kind of a lock and load for cash games?
I like Landry on DK. It's got to be full PPR, though. Landry derives a lot of his benefit from his ability to catch volume of passes. And, again, they only ran 41 offensive snaps last week. So take last week's results with a grain of salt.
Hyde or The Daily Show, Jonathan Stewart?
I'll take Hyde. The 49ers haven't shied away from giving him the ball, even when they fall behind in games.
They're asking about whether I will direct you to Kevin Ross' post. He just updated it. Mike Wallace, is he out? They're asking if he's out. I don't think he's out. He's in, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's out, but I don't think he's a great play.
Let's see. Price aside, Price wasn't a thing, Landry or Meredith. It's got to be Landry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On some of the fringe sites, maybe Meredith got bumped up after last week.
How do we feel about the old correlation play, Tavon and the Rams defense?
The return touchdowns just happen so infrequently that I almost never do that. I mean, I understand you get a double dip if he scores, but it's so infrequent that if you constantly chase that return touchdown, you're going to be behind more often than you're ahead. And I like the Lions passing attack today, so no Rams defense for me.
All right, Cards, we're getting out of here. Just one question before we go. Give me a name that's going to pop up as a winner. Just the name in the lineup on the Millie Maker winning lineup today on DraftKings.
because somebody's been trolling me about Zach Ertz being a terrible play in the chat. And let me say this. He played 83% of the snaps last week, and as Scott Ford just put a great one in the chat, look at the tight ends Washington has faced. It's like that Packers rush defense. You can't really put stock in that number after 5 games. So Zach Ertz is on the winning Millie Maker lineup today.
There you go. That's a bold proclamation. I like that. I appreciate that. With that, he's Cards. I'm Dean. I do want to say, stay tuned. The GOAT, Don West, is going to give his picks, and you're going to want to watch that video in its entirety. It is awesome. After Don West, Colosseum, we're at that. We'll take you guys all the way up to 1 o'clock to kick off and answer all your questions. With that, enjoy your football. Enjoy your Sunday. He's Cards. I'm Dean. Thanks for watching. We're out of here. Holla.
Don West here at rotogrinders.com, giving you those special picks when you put together your DraftKings lineups so that you have something nobody else does. And that, my friends, is how you win the big bucks. Now, the great thing about this one is I have the Westo 4000 up and running. That's right, Cal Spears spared no budget. He got all the bugs, all the AWOs, everything out of it. And it's running like a well-oiled machine. And it is now spitting out the picks so that together, me and the Westo are going to bring it to you. Pick number 1. And this is incredible. Good job, by the way. Pick number 1, Giovanni Bernard. That's right, running back for the Bengals at $4,600 going up against the New England Patriots. And you're going, why would you pick anybody against the Patriots? Because here's the way I see it. Dalton's going to be throwing the passes, not to the wide receivers. He's going to be throwing them to the running back. Jeremy Hill banged up. If you saw last week, he didn't do anything. Bernard's going to get the brunt of it. Not only could he break a couple big runs, look at him to be targeted in the end zone. I like Bernard. Almost made him my Jim Mint 10 pick, but I love him at $4,600. Pick number 2, Zach Miller, tight end Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. All I can tell you about Zach Miller is for the last 3 weeks, he's been in double-digit points. So here's the way I look at it. At only $3,800, that gives you a lot of room to go out and get a big star to cement that lineup perfectly. Number 3, Devontae Parker, Miami Dolphins wide receiver. This week, Miami takes on Pittsburgh. Now, they're going to be playing from behind. They got to throw the football. They have to. Devontae's going to be a target all day long. This could be one that nobody sees coming. Now, here it is. My Jim Mint 10 pick of the week, and you're going to... What? Ah, no. What do you want to show me? All right, go ahead. I promise, if DeAndre Washington doesn't hit big, I'll sing the next pick next week of the Jim Mint 10 pick with my shirt off. All right, well, number 1, I got bad information. That was all done tongue-in-cheek, was never going to happen. No way was I going to take the shirt off and actually sing. I was so hot. I actually kind of put this on you because if you'd have been around at the right time, that thing would have never happened. So this one's on you, Westo. Not going to do the singing. What do you mean? Don't threaten me. What? What in the world? Oh, man, that just... All right. It's cold in here. Here it goes. My Jim Mint 10 pick is Brock Osweiler, baby. Brock, only $5,400, and he's going against the Colts. So the Houston Texans should score a lot of points and look for Brock to throw a lot of touchdown passes. Loving it, Jim Mint 10. You and me, it's on.
What? Hello? Where am I? Hello? Anybody? What are all these names? Who in the world is Victor Cruz? What if he's related to Nelson Cruz? Where am I? Why are there posters of Dean plastered all over the place? Wow, it's like a shrine to Dean. This is weird and unsettling. Crane? Big T. Anybody, somebody. Hello, help?
What is going on, grinders? Hopefully you have not forgotten my beautiful face or my co-host Rad Thad's beautiful face. This is Last Call, sponsored by DraftKings. We got about 24 minutes here to help you guys out with your last-minute lineup questions. What's going on, Thad?
It's all good, man. Chat, what's up? You guys gotta help me wish my main man, Christopher, a happy belated birthday.
That is true. Yesterday was my 34th birthday. I know you don't believe it because I just look so youthful. But
it's all the Jergens, man. It's all the cream. That's
my 34th birthday, and I went out and I will suggest, guys, get the find a Dream Bomb somewhere out there. It is whipped cream vodka with orange juice in like a shot situation, and then you drop it into a ginger ale, and it tastes amazing. I don't care if you call me a wimp because of my foo drink. It tastes incredible. I had so many of them, and now I'm ready to party with you guys.
Well, dude, let me give you just a little word of advice.
Yep.
Ahead of time. I don't know if these things are sold everywhere, but there's this little thing that comes in a bottle that looks exactly like a 5-hour energy drink.
Okay.
And it's something that you drink in order to it doesn't screw with your buzz, but it decreases your hangover.
Okay.
Take one of those before you go out, and you'll be safe. You'll still get effed up, but in the morning, at least you're not like dying of dehydration and whatnot. So
I feel I am a little whatever this morning, but we're gonna help these people out. We got the QQ starting to roll in, and guys, I'll be on Last Call for NBA. It's official. I'm on the schedule, so you guys will see my face a little bit more. Haven't watched a lot of preseason NBA, but I will get there. I like that someone said, "Wow, Colosi is 34." Like, is that because I look young or because I look old?
That's the thing, yeah.
QQ, Coates, Royal, or Hearns? What do you got there, buddy, old pal?
Damn, I think
I'm out on Coates. I'm gonna tell you that right now. If he has a great game, that's fine, but the hand thing worries me. I don't want Coates.
I'm still gonna go with Coates. None of those guys are cash game options. So if I'm gonna go tournament, I'm gonna go balls to the walls because nobody's gonna have Coates either. And reports from Twitter said that he was catching the ball fine in pregame, whatever that means. But, the guys, he had trouble catching the ball with two good hands last week. So I'll still ride with him. It's still cheap.
And thank you guys for the birthday wishes, everybody. I appreciate that. Hilton or Hopkins? I'm kind of riding. I like having a late night hammer. I'm kind of on the Hopkins train, even though Hilton had a monster. How about yourself?
I'm all over the Hopkins, especially with no Fuller. I think both of them are in play, but with no Fuller, I think the target monster is going to eat. Is my main man, Elvin Silva. So. Beautiful.
People are saying that. I'm actually shocked by this because someone said Christopher Colosi took all of his money and used it on moisturizer. I don't think I look young. I'm actually very flat. Most people, I thought they were saying like, "Oh, you're only 34. You look old as hell." But I think they were actually complimenting my youthful complexion.
It's the baby face.
I mean, hardly. I got hair all over it. But anyways, Chris Connolly or Jalen Strong?
That's
I'm
a
a
very
big
question.
I'm a big Conley fan. I'm a big Conley fan today, so I'm going with Chris Conley.
I've got some. Do you have any Vernon Davis exposure with a readout?
Only in
GPPs?
on one of my Aces teams, he was super cheap, so I threw him in there for on Thursday. But other than that, I'm just not a big Vernon Davis guy.
All right, beautiful. Do we have any love for Tavon Austin? I am playing some Tavon Austin today. I think he has a breakout game today.
I like Tavon as much as I do any week. I mean, everyone mentions him every week as like their sneaky play, so he's never sneaky, but he gets a lot of targets against this defense. Believe it or not, Case Keenum is in play as well. So yeah, he's in play.
Okay, someone say Colosi looks about 29th. I still got my hair. I mean, I guess my joints receding a little bit here, but I kind of give it one of these, and I stay youthful.
I thought you were in your 20s, man. So that's good.
Hey, I'll take it, man. If you saw my body, you would know that I'm incredibly old.
My body, like John Mayer would say, your body is a wonderland.
Someone said, QQ, how do you guys feel about Hopkins now the Fuller is ruled out? Yes, we like Hopkins. Who else are they going to throw to? I also like Lamar Miller a little bit. They might try to run the ball a little more than previously they would have with their passing attack. Austin or LaFell? I dig LaFell. I like the narrative, street of LaFell going back to New England. I'm a sucker for that. What do you think of LaFell?
Yeah, I like LaFell too. I don't know if it's because of the narrative or not, but last week he caught his first touchdown in forever, and he caught 2 of them. So I think he's proven himself as part of the passing game. He'll have some opportunity. They're going to try their best to shut down A.J. Green. I don't think that's going to work either. But, I like LaFell.
Well, that brings me to another point. I have Jordan Matthews. That's not his name. Jordy Nelson. There we go. I've got him in some lineups. I'm a little tentative about it, though, because Dallas did a really good job of shutting down A.J. Green. And then all those balls had to go to LaFell. LaFell had a good game last week. Randall Cobb just had a nice game last week or the week before. I kind of like some Cobb time.
Yeah, I like Cobb. I think I saw a stat where if he touches the ball like 3 times or more in terms of rushing, he averages close to 16 DK points. So he's the backup running back. I'm sure he's going to touch the ball a decent amount. He's running the slot. He had a good game last week, which no one's talking about. So I do like him a lot.
All right, we got Walker or Kels. Well, first off, Kels isn't playing, or no, Kels is playing. I was thinking Eifert. For me, I like Delaney. He performs every week in cash. His price is not exorbitant. Who's your favorite cheap tight end today?
I like Charles Clay and, believe it or not, Richard Rodgers. And a third on that list is Witten.
I've been playing. I mean, he hasn't scored for me yet, but he hasn't been killing me. This is Zoma kid for Cincinnati. I like playing him. He's so cheap. It allows him to open up all kinds of things. I think a touchdown is coming. I just don't know when it's going to be, but I hope that it shows up. Where's your stance on Jamal Charles? I've got him in a few GPPs that I'm kind of just lighting on fire, because I want if he has that big game today. You think today's the day?
I don't have any of them. It's just, but to me, my opinion is that you're either all in or you're all out, and it could happen, like it could not. I just feel like there are too many other healthy guys. There's really no reason to kind of take the training wheels off. But if he's done it before, so if he can easily do it again, I just don't have him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on.
You think he's going to get a workload though? That's like an actual workload, or you think it's going to be tentative?
I think he'll get a decent enough timeshare to do damage. I mean, considering who he is, he doesn't need a full, workload. He can break one long at any given point. At least he could have. I don't know if it's still there or not, but
we got people asking, is Coates in? Yes, Coates is officially in. That came out on the RotoGrinders app. You've got to be having the RotoGrinders app because it is very, very helpful. And you would have seen that it says here, Sammy Coates will play. So
that app is awesome because back pre-app, I used to have to go searching over all different sorts of websites and hitting refresh to see if they had some. Man, ain't nobody got time for that.
Man, ain't nobody got time for that.
Nobody got time for that.
People are talking a little Alshon Jeffrey here. I just can't until he does something. I like Meredith over there on the other side, but
he's just not getting enough targets. Last year he was injured and he was getting hella targets. This year he's injured. He's not getting targets. So
now we're getting Eli Rogers or Coates. I'm not in love with either of them. You had said Coates before. If I had to play one, that hand just made that thumb. Is it a thumb? Is that what Coates has?
I don't know. It's supposed to be some sort of laceration. I'm not loving either one of them. I was hoping and I was kind of expecting Coates to be out, in which case I was going to be all over Rodgers, but now it's just messed it up for everybody, so kind of out.
All right, QQ, this one is for youth. It's just shot by my face, though. I don't remember what it was. It was it was how many points do you project for Clay Thomas? That's what it was.
How many points?
Yeah, they're asking you how many points you're projecting for Clay on DK.
I don't know. I'm not really good at the whole projection sort of thing. I think in terms of what I think he can do, he can get a touchdown and 50 to 60 yards receiving. So for me, at that price on DK, it was like 2.9.
Right.
I'm all over that, So he's got that little red X next to his name where people aren't sure if he's playing or not. So he's going to play, and I think he'll score. So I like him.
Beautiful. These aren't questions. We got Snead or Pryor. I like the fact they were going to Snead a bunch at the beginning of the year, and then he got hurt, and then he came back, and it seemed like maybe he wasn't all the way there because he only got one target. And now they've had a bye week, and I think that this Breeze is going to throw the ball all over the field.
Yeah.
And I think the Snead should be a part of that. So I've got Breeze and Snead. I've got Breeze and Fleener. I even got Breeze and Cooks, which is my least favorite pairing. But I've got some back and forth action there. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think I'll take Snead because what you said is right on the nose. I think whatever happened week one with the whole Breeze, Cooks, Snead thing, I think that there's a very good chance that happens again. Pryor's a good tournament option, but I think his ceiling is with Breeze at home. These guys, their ceilings are just kind of ridiculous. So.
I feel you. Oh, my bad. I didn't mean Clay Thomas. I meant Charles Clay. Someone said, who the hell is Clay Thomas? You're right. I meant Charles Clay. But
that's super sneaky play.
Thad knew I was talking about. If I ever say something dumb like that, you got to ring the dumbbell and go, the dumbbell. And tell me I'm an idiot. All right. Landry and Pitta or Thomas and Walker. I like the first one.
Cash or
they didn't specify. They said Landry Pitta or Thomas Walker.
Okay, I'm gonna go Landry Pitta.
I like Landry Pitta.
No Steve Smith, I'm gonna go Landry Pitta.
Benjamin or Olsen, and he specified early slate. Olsen's in a great spot and everything. I really don't like paying that $7K for him. It's just
I don't know, man. The last two games he played against the Saints, he went ham.
No, I know. He had over 100 yards in both. And
I think that's that sentiment that you just said where it makes you a little uncomfortable.
Right.
Makes a lot of people uncomfortable. So I think that even makes him a better play, better tournament play. So I would pick him.
I got you. Who's your – let's see here. Who's your cash quarterback today, bub?
Today I went with depends on the site. I went with
DK.
I went with Cam. Actually, I went with Cam everywhere.
Killer Cam. I'm rocking Drew Brees in I've got $40, $25 I've got 120. I've got $3,000 in double up action. And I've split it up a little bit between Drew Brees and then Andy Dalton, and then LaFell and Andy Dalton and Green are kind of my things. I've got Le'Veon Bell anchoring the way. And I kind of like Ryan Matthews today. What are your thoughts on Ryan Matthews?
I like him a lot. I like him a lot. I mean, against Washington, I think he's going to probably have his best game this season. A lot of people were afraid about his involvement because he fumbled late in the game last week.
Right.
I'm not worried about that. So I think he could approach 100 yards rushing this tonight.
I think if he's got a shot to do it, today will be the day.
Yeah, this is his chance. If he doesn't do it today, then I'm going to have to start.
I've been playing running backs against the Redskins all year, and that's not where my problems have been this season. That's been working out great. Some of my receivers have missed, but that's been working out wonderfully. So today it was, I think, about Crowell. I mean, you name it. There were all these kind of guys, and they were awesome. All right, in the flex position, Hearns, Jay Rich, or Royal?
I'm gonna go with Jay Rich. I really like him a lot. You know, I think it's basically a repeat of last week in terms of which one of these running backs you want to use. I think at his cheap price, I think he has a pretty decent floor considering this game is going to probably be pretty high scoring. At least that's what I think. So I'm going to go with Jay Rich.
All right. Someone said press 1 if you're addicted to DFS, and I put 1 twice, 1-1. Cobb or Landry in FanDuel Cash. I think that Landry is a safer option, but I do like Cobb, as I said, because I watched that Dallas game, and they shifted coverage over there, and AJ Green is very good. I mean, they didn't hold him down completely, but you didn't get anything out of him that you loved. I mean, you get 4 catches at 50 yards. You may as well not even have played.
Yeah, and I think also on FanDuel, Landry, from a value standpoint, he's probably a better value as well.
Right.
So they're both cash viable given what's going on in Green Bay with the running back situation. So going with Landry.
All right, let's do some lightning round, as Devin likes to say. All right. Pitta or Ertz FanDuel Cash?
Pitta.
I'm going to go with Pitta as well. I'm not. Ertz disappointed me last week, and now
I like Ertz in tournaments, though. The cash Pitta. I'll go Pitta.
QQ. Tavon Austin in the Titans D or Chris Connolly in the Bills D? In cash.
In cash, I'm going to go Tavon Austin and Titans D.
We're on the same page there. Thoughts on Forsett? Forsett's not pickable on DraftKings, is he?
Yeah, he's 4K.
But how come I can't find him anywhere?
I don't know. He's 4K, though. I think he's an interesting option. I think they'll probably do, like STL Cards say, I think this will be more of a throwing affair. But considering that they're short, you got to – when it comes to all hands on deck, you'll get a lot of volume.
Right.
So he's a tournament option. I think they'll throw a lot more than run, though.
Yeah, I don't know why. For whatever reason on DraftKings, I punch his name in and he doesn't come up. Like,
really?
I put in Justin. He's just not. I don't know if he was taken out of the player pool after they dismissed him or they let him go and now he's back. I have no idea, but I can't. I don't know if he's. But someone tell me in chat, is he playable? And I'm just an idiot and somehow I'm missing this because I can't find a place to select him. QQ Hopkins, Whaler, or Olsen Cobb?
Hopkins, what's the second one?
Waler. I don't reckon. Maybe that's supposed to be Walter or Walker. Maybe that's supposed to be Hopkins and Delaney Walker. Yeah, let's say that's what it is. It's like a wide receiver and a tight end for the other ones. Olsen and Cobb. So let's say it's Hopkins and Walker. Kind of like Olsen and Cobb.
I'm going to go Olsen and Cobb. I think Cobb's going to have a pretty good game today.
Yeah, everyone's telling me that he's not on DK. So
I thought it was 4K.
Maybe we got FanDuel.
Oh, you know what?
Pricing.
He's not. Actually, I got him 4Ks on Aces. My bad.
There you go.
Sorry.
All right, Sproles or James White, DKGPP. I think Sproles, just because you're dealing with that very porous Washington. Even though he can more catch his ball, but they're not good at that either. They're not good at
anything. Yeah, I'll go Sproles just because White is an option, but there's so many options there. I mean, in New England, so I'll go with Sproles.
Concur. QQ Cobb or Coates. For me, that's Cobb.
Yeah, that's Cobb for sure.
QQ Cooper, Pryor, or Crabtree. I'm not loving this Oakland game with all this wind they're saying is whipping around. Or did I get that? I feel like I saw something about that. I've been doing.
Yeah, I saw something too. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. So I'm going to go Cooper. In that order, I'm going to go Cooper, Pryor, and then Crabtree.
Rodgers or Perriman, DKGPP. Oh, Perriman is way cheap. I mean, you basically went to the top and the bottom.
I'm going to Perriman.
You dig Perriman then? Well, that's obviously a price play because
and also I think he's actually bumped higher than Kmart Aiken on the depth chart. Maybe not in writing, but in play. So at minimum price, I think he's got a pretty good potential to break out.
Gotcha. People were asking about Fleener. I do like Fleener. Here we go. Meredith or Austin, DKGPP. Did we miss the boat on Meredith, or do we think it's going to be more of the same? Price not that much.
I think it'll be more of the same. I think that it doesn't matter who they put in that position. They're going to be, it's just more of a role play than anything.
All right, we're back to Landry or Cobb, FanDuel, GPP. I still think Landry's a good play even in GPP, but I think Cobb is the lower owned option between.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think either one of them are going to be heavily owned, but I think as far as touchdowns go, on FanDuel, you really want those touchdowns. So I'll go with Cobb. I think Landry's a better cash game play and better PPR site play, but I like them both.
When are we going to stop? Someone says, does Macklin score today? I actually think he gets in the end zone today.
I hope so. I got him on a crap ton of teams, so I hope so. I'm on the Alex Smith bandwagon today.
QQ, Azoma in play. I was talking about him before. I do think he's in play. I think so. Okay, it's a situation where I actually didn't even realize until like last week or the week before that the interceptions changed from 2 to 1 and all that kind of stuff. So all of a sudden, this whole quarterback that might throw 2 or 3 interceptions in a game where they're playing from behind and yada yada yada. Now that it's only 1 point, it doesn't really bother me. I assume Tom Brady's going to come out there and just do his best to dust them. First game at home, we saw what he did last week with his 400 yards and just a maniac. I still have him here.
I want to ask him, Tom. Man, I'm glad to see you, Tom. First of all, thank you for letting some of that anger out. What I want to know is, did you save any anger for the home crowd?
I can't. I've definitely got more home crowd anger. I'm gonna go into Lambeau, not Lambeau. I'm gonna go into what is their thing called? Gillette? It's Gillette, right? Gillette. Yeah. I'm gonna go into Gillette Stadium and I'm gonna open up a can of whip ass. If you smell what the Tom is cooking.
Excellent.
So he's going to throw a bunch of touchdowns and do all kinds of stuff, and they're going to have no choice but to try to answer back. So if Andy Dalton is forced to throw as much as I think he's going to, he may throw 2 interceptions, but I don't really care because the potential is there for him to be forced to try and throw 4 touchdowns. You know what I mean? So I like that his depressed price. I think he's a great GPP play, and I got him in cash. What else we got here? It looks like the QQs. They're not trying to make sure you guys put QQ in front of them because it's easier for me to see him. Prior for cash? ? He Ron Burgundy did. Prior for cash?
Prior for cash? I have him as a tournament option, but he is the focal point of the offense. But I do think of him more as a tournament option than cash option.
Yeah, did he stop taking quarterback snaps?
I think he's gonna get some today.
Yeah, I think he's
going to get some today. So I think he's not the shiny thing anymore, but none of that has changed. So
I had him that first. Are you the kind of guy that when you find someone that you kind of ride them for a little bit, or you try to always find that dude that no one's looking at, and then if he hits, pull out?
I look for the dude that no one has, but at the same time, I look for the guy that everybody else is riding, and then when they're off, I go for sloppy seconds. Gotcha. So Pryor is in that perfect spot. So that's the guy that I like in tournaments. So.
All right, we got 1:34. Let's see if we can get these last few people some help here. Cobb instead of Fuller, I would say yes. Fuller's probably not going to play. I don't know if he's been officially.
Yeah, he's out.
But he is officially out? Okay.
He's gone.
Gotcha. Titans or Bills defense? If you need to save, I absolutely don't mind the Titans, but I like the Bills better.
Yeah, I like Bills better. They will be much higher owned.
Vernon Davis for cash. I did in one iteration of lineups that total $1,000, so I like it. $1,000 is his worth.
Yeah, I have him in tournaments. Trump's playing cash.
Meredith or Tavon Austin. I like them both.
I like them both. I'm going to go whoever's cheaper. Tavon Austin will be lesser owned.
Yep.
So you can go with him.
I got Ajita. It's Italian, It's like a
dude, it's the combination of that big ass hot dog you had, which you can tell Chad about, and also the cheese. What was some cheese nugget?
It was. I did a lot of bad things last night.
Dude, that stuff. First of all, it's not real cheese. I don't know where they keep that stuff.
Landry or Howard flex for cash.
I've been using Howard. I mean, for me, I like for cash games. I like running backs in my flex. That's how I am.
Yeah, I actually ran three running. I'm still learning the cash. I've always been a tournament guy. I'm still learning the cash thing. All right. Come on, there's got to be one more thing.
Getting close. Close to that. Pencils
5, 4,
down,
3,
y'all.
pencils down, guys.
Oh, damn. I almost put my last answer in. Pencils down, y'all.
That's always my thing. I'm always like, man, I love my lineups. I really do. 3, 2, 1. They're terrible. I'm going to lose. Why did I do that? Like, that's always.
I'm the same. I'm like, damn it, Sammy Coates.
All right. Well, anything you want to say to the people before I do our little sign off and get out of here?
Good luck, chat. You know, if you guys happen to win some big bucks, holla at your boys, plural. Happy belated birthday, my friend.
Thank you so much, Thad. And so we're going to go ahead and get out of here. For Thad, I am Chris Colosi. I haven't said this in a week. It's so strange because I used to be on every day now, but I'll be back for NBA, guys, so you're going to see my face more. So anyways, for Thad, I'm Chris Colosi saying that we hope that you beat every single person today in your daily fantasy contest, except, of course, us. Later.